Everyone thought heroes were supposed to protect the world, not knowing that most of them had long since become hypocrites, worse than garbage. A sudden crisis erupts inside a high-rise building, the situation growing dire by the second. SWAT officers form a tight perimeter, taking turns demanding the hostage-takers to surrender. The ringleader refuses to lay down his weapons, instead using the hostages' safety as leverage against the police. The officers grumble among themselves. Heroes these days have gotten lazier and lazier, half-hearted on missions, arrogant to boot, and always leaving behind unnecessary casualties. It's then that the hero Lightning suddenly appears. His tone drips with contempt as he mocks the officers for being unable to handle a few lowlifes, can't even take down a handful of thugs. He waves his hand, dismissing these extras to stand down. They're just getting in the way. The words barely leave his mouth before Lightning activates his ability. His figure flickers like a ghost, and he's already in front of the ringleader. The ringleader's face goes pale with shock. In a panic, he swings the gun around and points it at the hostages. He barks at Lightning to stay back, bold on the outside, shaking within. Lightning raises an eyebrow with a smirk, quietly activates his skill, and takes control of the masked man nearby. The man's body suddenly stiffens, driven by an invisible force. He kills one of the hostages. Lightning feigns outrage, laying into the ringleader for being irredeemable trash who dares to slaughter innocent civilians, deliberately provoking him. The ringleader, now fully enraged, swings his gun back at Lightning, ready to fire. Lightning shifts slightly to dodge, then reaches out in a flash. He grabs the man by the face, and in one fluid motion wrenches the gun from his hand. He spins, using the momentum to put several steps of distance between them. He lifts the masked clown's arm and says coldly that he's the one who killed these people. Then, without the slightest hesitation, he pulls the trigger on the remaining hostages. After that, he draws his lightning blade and severs the ringleader's neck. Lightning sweeps his gaze over the survivors left in the room. He puts on a show of righteousness, announcing it's time to carry out justice. Before the words are even out, he charges forward, massacring what's left of the enemies. Meanwhile, I stand on the rooftop of a nearby high-rise, watching him below with his vicious, unrestrained brutality. The count beside me speaks slowly, saying that if I kill Lightning, I'll never need to rely on his help again. I frown and push back. I never asked for his help to begin with, and I no longer need it. The count lets out a low chuckle and tells me to prove it with actions, not words. I walk to the edge of the rooftop and leap off without a moment's hesitation. My body cuts through the wind resistance, plunging downward at full speed. There was a time when heroes lived by a clear principle. When a few faced off against many, saving the majority always came first. But somewhere along the way, that principle slowly twisted out of shape and lost its original meaning. For the sake of so-called majority safety, the sacrifice of a few has become accepted as a matter of course. Justice has long since gone rotten. Even when innocent lives are lost during a mission, heroes bear no responsibility whatsoever. Whether it's an unforeseeable accident or an act of deliberate brutality, no one is ever held accountable. They've become villains wearing the masks of heroes, hiding every shred of their depravity. As night falls, the city's neon lights mask the dark currents churning beneath the surface. A car comes speeding down the road. It rolls to a smooth stop at the curb, and Lightning steps out, pushing the door open. He has a woman on each arm, his demeanor bold and arrogant. Then he walks straight into a club by the road. I emerge slowly from the shadows, quietly falling into step behind him, and slip into the club after him. In this world, heroes with special abilities are more idolized than ever. They bathe in fame and fortune, treated like royalty wherever they go. As their status climbs, so does their arrogance, their original purpose lost entirely. The sense of duty and humility they once carried has been discarded, replaced by hunger for power and the reckless abuse of strength. The title of hero has become hollow, nothing more than an empty shell of what it once meant. These hypocrites wearing the skin of heroes trample over the dignity of others without a second thought, treating innocent lives as worthless, to claim more for themselves. They don't even hesitate to harm their own kind. Over time, their purpose has narrowed to something small and singular: just clean up the trash villains, and they'll be worshipped in return. But these so-called heroes who are worse than trash, who's going to deal with them? If no one is willing to stand up and confront this hollow, rotting justice, then I will. I'll be the blade that cuts down every last one of these pretenders. It doesn't take long before I've taken out every bodyguard in my way. I pull on my coat and walk steadily deeper into the club. As I approach a private room, Lightning's voice drifts out from inside. I hear him complaining about how many insufferable heroes there are, too many to count. He says bluntly that the number doesn't matter, all that matters is they're dead. The only one worth being alive is him. The moment he finishes speaking, I appear directly behind him. In the next second, the two of us are locked in a fight, the room erupting into chaos. The women inside scream and scatter in every direction. Lightning, his mood thoroughly ruined, glares at me with murderous fury, calling me ungrateful. He scoffs at a little kid like me actually dares to challenge him. I parry his attacks, a cold smile on my lips. People always say Lightning has slow reflexes. Seeing him in person today, that reputation is well deserved. It's only then that Lightning notices the sting on his body, and his expression darkens. His eyes turn predatory as he demands to know if I'm from the Anonyms or the Villain Alliance. I say nothing, no response at all. He pauses, then a sinister grin spreads across his face, his voice turning savage and unhinged. No matter where I come from, he's going to tear me to pieces today, and feed me to the dogs. Those words rip open a seal somewhere in my memory, and the past comes flooding back. My sister, collapsed in a pool of blood, no longer breathing. I hold her cold body tight, despair washing over me in waves, trembling without end. It's then that the slow sound of a wheelchair breaks the silence. I look back to find the Count approaching. In his hand is our family photo. The Count asks quietly if I want to avenge my sister. I meet his eyes and say yes, voice firm and unwavering. He then asks how I plan to find the one who killed her with so many heroes out there. My fingertips curl slightly, and I go quiet for a moment. Then I raise my eyes to meet his, voice absolutely resolute. I just have to keep killing. Just like this. Hunt down every hypocrite hiding behind the name of hero. As long as I keep going, one day I'll find the one responsible and give my sister peace. My thoughts snap back to the present. I yank the weapon from my sleeve and drive it into Lightning with full force, but he reacts faster than expected. He catches the weapon barehanded. Lightning crushes it in his grip without blinking, sneering that I brought a toy to a real fight. Before he even finishes talking, he swings a hard punch at me. I twist to the side just in time to avoid it, but he presses the attack without pause, a second punch already swinging. This one carries brutal weight behind it, a raw, overwhelming force packed into each strike. It lands squarely on my chest, and I let out a muffled grunt. I can't absorb the blow and crash hard onto the floor. Lightning walks toward me slowly, staring down at me sprawled on the ground with cold mockery. He says leisurely that he hasn't had nearly enough fun yet. The moment the words land, his figure flickers again and he launches another assault, more ferocious than before. Gritting my teeth, I press off the floor and force myself upright. The instant I manage to steady myself, I cross my arms and raise them to block. My eyes sweep quickly across the room, landing on the fire extinguisher nearby, and I have an idea. I seize the fire extinguisher and hurl it straight at Lightning. The extreme heat radiating from Lightning instantly ignites it. A second later, explosion. The blast sends a cloud of smoke and debris into the air, and Lightning reflexively raises an arm over his nose. He turns his head, ducking away from the smoke. I seize the opening and throw a hard kick at him. Lightning takes the hit off guard and staggers back a few steps. He closes the gap immediately, muttering irritably that I'm far too sure of myself. I spin my head to dodge his incoming attack. I engage my core and throw a powerful kick at him. He sidesteps but counterpunches on the turn, connecting solidly with my sternum. A dull wave of pain pulses through my entire body, and my legs give out beneath me. Lightning crouches down, grabs me by the collar with a cold sneer, asking if I thought I was the only foolish villain who ever tried a stunt like this. Before the words are out, his fist crashes into my face. He hits me again and again, each blow driven with contempt and hatred, spitting that every fool who's ever gotten in his way has died by his hand. He looms over my battered body, mocking me mercilessly, sneering that I have absolutely no idea who I'm dealing with. Only once he's satisfied does Lightning finally let go. Then he delivers his ultimatum. There's only one way this ends, with my death. But just as he's about to finish me off, his body suddenly jerks, completely out of his control. When he opens his eyes, everything has changed. He's bound and standing beneath a guillotine. Cold sweat trickles down Lightning's forehead, because I am right there, gripping his wrist, channeling my ability through my fingertips directly into him. Lightning's eyes dart around in panic. Nothing feels right. I look him dead in the eye and tell him calmly that after taking a few hits, I've already figured out how his ability works. Now that I know how it functions, there's no reason to keep playing punching bag. Lightning's blood runs cold. One thought, he has to get out of here. But I won't give him that chance. I launch my attack immediately. Lightning stands frozen, his expression blank with shock. A thin line of blood has already appeared at his throat. He presses his hand over the wound in a panic, his breathing turning ragged. He hisses at me through gritted teeth, calling me a madwoman. Lightning's eyes are filled with bitter resentment. He accuses me of playing him the whole time. I raise an eyebrow with a cold smile. He can play others, so naturally I can play him too. Lightning explodes in fury, his eyes wide and bloodshot, thrashing against his restraints as if he wants to tear me apart. I throw a hard punch straight into his face. Then I ask mockingly where he ranks among the heroes. If this is the best every hero can offer, it's a pretty disappointing bar to set. Lightning's body has completely stopped obeying him, and the panic in his heart swells beyond control. Even the fear of death has rushed in to swallow him whole, shattering whatever composure he had left. I watch him in his state of despair, and say coldly that he sent so many people to their graves. Now it's simply his turn. That terror of dying is consuming him, bit by bit, eating away at the last thread of his sanity. Lightning charges toward the faint gleam of light before him, throwing all caution aside. Every step stumbles, yet still he runs for his life, and the more he runs, the more his fear grows and the weaker his legs become. But my ability has him locked down completely. No amount of struggling will change a thing. I stand in place and watch him in silence, witnessing his final useless thrashing. This reckoning I've brought for him will not allow him a single chance to escape. The seeds of evil he planted are his and his alone to swallow. I finish him off in one move and claim his lightning ability in the process. The electrical energy surges from his corpse into my palm and flows through my meridians, fusing instantly with my body, the power to command lightning now fully mine. At this moment, the Count's voice reaches me from nearby. He says that once I've started down this path of killing, there will be no end to the slaughter ahead. The heroes will mark me as their most wanted, launching a full-scale manhunt for me, and among them will surely be some far stronger than Lightning, far harder to handle. The Count presses me. Have I truly made peace with everything that lies ahead? My answer comes without hesitation, voice steady. I've been ready since the beginning. If I were afraid, I would never have started this in the first place. I am the hero killer. Anyone who dares stand in my way can be cut down without mercy. My gaze sweeps over the carnage below, and as I recall the deeds of those hypocrites, the cold in my eyes deepens further. I pause, then add, a truly dangerous person doesn't worry about things like that. The next morning arrives in an instant. Police officers cluster around Lightning's cold body, crouching to examine the scene and record details with care. The lead detective furrows his brow and orders his team to compile all evidence and seal it immediately for delivery to Hero League headquarters. A hero dying outside of a mission is simply not within the police department's jurisdiction. They have no authority to intervene, let alone handle it themselves. Then the door is suddenly shoved open. An orange-haired man enters, nose flaring, following the scent of blood. He stumbles forward, half crawling to Lightning's body. He seizes the corpse tightly in both hands, his knuckles going white from the grip. His voice quakes with grief and rage as he demands to know who did this to Lightning. As a perception-type ability user, the last faint trace of Lightning's presence seeps into his ears and folds into his senses. Psycho's pupils contract sharply, and the grief and fury in his eyes suddenly crystallize into something cold and still. Psycho slowly rises to his feet. He drops Lightning's body without ceremony. It hits the floor with a heavy thud. He covers his face, teeth clenched, and vows in a low voice to avenge Lightning with his own hands. As he speaks, he tilts his head slightly and draws his tongue slowly across the warm bloodstain on his hand. He then raises his hand to his forehead and activates his special ability, retroactive perception. As his ability takes hold, the vague shapes and shadows before him gradually sharpen, the image slowly solidifying, until, at last, my face appears before him, clear, complete, undisguised. Psycho's body trembles slightly, yet the corners of his mouth curl into a strange smile. He murmurs quietly to himself, he's finally found the trail of the killer. At that moment, I am at home, pushing myself through intense training. The grueling workout has left a sheen of sweat across my forehead. I don't bother wiping it away. My movements remain steady and focused on getting stronger, because more heroes will be coming for me. Only by growing stronger and surviving to the end will I be able to kill the one I'm after. The television is running a news broadcast, all of it centered on the Hero League. But there's not a single word about Lightning, as if the bloody massacre last night never happened at all. The Hero League is the organization that most heroes belong to, and it holds the authority to issue commands to every hero. Long ago, after winning the war against the villains, they poured enormous effort into refining their rules and governance systems to consolidate their hold on power. After decades of this, saying the world is ruled by the Hero League isn't an exaggeration at all. I turn on the shower. Hot water washes over me. Yet somewhere inside, a strange, uneasy feeling surfaces. Why has the media gone completely silent, scrubbing every trace of Lightning's death? Is it because they don't want the public to see their weakness and are deliberately burying the story? Or, like they did with my sister, have they simply used Lightning up and thrown him away? Why this absolute indifference, not even willing to let a single ripple form for him? Forget it. None of that matters. As long as I eliminate them one by one, they will never be able to keep looking the other way. Whoever comes looking for me next, I'm already fully prepared. Once I've gathered my thoughts, I change clothes and head out, making my way to the small place where I work. The owner sees me and greets me with a smile. I give a small nod in return. After tying on my apron, I look over the shop. It's as quiet as ever. The owner says business has always been slow. I should know that by now, though there is one table today. I give a flat, not bad. The owner gives me a helpless look, saying I'm like a robot with no emotions. He turns and heads to the back kitchen to take inventory. The moment he's gone, I sense it instantly. Someone has appeared in the seat in front of me. It's Psycho. He's sitting there with his head down, flipping through a newspaper, looking completely at ease. I'm on high alert at once, eyes locked on his every move. The next second, Psycho quietly raises a gun, pointing it at the owner's back. At the same time, he looks up at me, sticking out his tongue with a provocative smirk. My heart lurches. Without a second thought, I tap into Lightning's ability and charge forward. In the exact moment he pulls the trigger, I use the momentum of the dash to restrain him. Psycho fights back hard, struggling in my grip. Then he says in a light, breezy tone to calm down, he just came to say hello. I keep my hold firm and don't ease up, demanding coldly whether he's working for the Hero League. Psycho is pinned, but his mind is already racing. He can tell I keep my composure under pressure. Even when ambushed, I react with complete decisiveness. And just now I used Lightning's ability to subdue him, which leads him to suspect that my power is the ability to steal others' abilities. He pulls his thoughts together quickly and slides a folded note my way. As he turns to leave, he makes a point of saying, "Just the two of us. Tomorrow." The owner hears the commotion and comes out from the back, face full of confusion, asking what just happened. I wave it off with a slight shake of my head, just a rowdy customer who's already gone. The next day, I followed the address on Psycho's note to the meeting spot, a restricted zone. The area is scattered with ruined buildings, crumbling walls, and collapsed floor slabs blocking the paths. The entire place is in shambles, and even the wind drifting through the hollow structures carries a desolate, mournful echo. I walk slowly into the area, stepping over a fallen, rust-eaten iron fence. My footfalls deliberately quiet. I scan warily in every direction, searching for any sign of Psycho. Every so often, I stop and hold still, carefully reading the surroundings. When I reach the center of the area, my steps come to a sudden halt. I sense a flicker of danger. I snap my head around and find Psycho sighting me down the barrel of a sniper rifle. Seeing me turn, he smiles and compliments my sharp instincts. Then, without further preamble, he pulls the trigger and opens fire on me. The bullet comes screaming toward me. I dodge quickly to the side. Psycho moves fast, reloads the sniper rifle, and lines up another shot. I keep shifting my position to evade the follow-up rounds, and manage to duck behind a piece of cover. I pick up a car side mirror nearby and use the angle of the incoming bullets to calculate his position. My best guess is that he's hiding inside that dilapidated building, about 1,800 meters away. I reach into my pocket. My fingers find the steel balls I prepared in advance. Enough for this situation. I tighten my wrist, build force in my palm, and rotate sharply. I hurl the steel balls with full force, sending them streaking toward Psycho's hiding spot. Psycho dodges in time, and the steel balls slam into the wall and explode on impact. He bursts out laughing, delighted, saying, "Now this is getting interesting," marveling that such a tiny ball could carry that much power, calling me a monster. I plant my foot hard off the ground and close the distance with lightning's ability at full speed. Psycho's eyes flash with a mad enthusiasm. He mutters that prey this interesting shouldn't be handed over to the Hero League. He wants to enjoy this fight himself. With that, he raises the sniper rifle again. But no matter how much he scans, he can't find me anywhere. Then, without warning, a strange sound rings out from somewhere nearby. Psycho goes rigid, instinctively assuming someone else from the Hero League has arrived. He tenses up, sweeping the area with his rifle. Meanwhile, I'm in the supersonic state of lightning's ability, moving at staggering speed. In just 10 seconds, I've closed more than a kilometer and appear right in front of Psycho. Psycho reels back in shock, fumbling to rack and aim the sniper rifle. But I'm already moving first. I grab the barrel and force it skyward, while twisting the body of the gun to destroy his aim. No matter how many times Psycho pulls the trigger, every shot goes wild. Not one touches me. Seeing the rifle is useless, he immediately pulls a handgun from his pocket and tries to shoot. I reach out and grab the frame of the gun with precision. With a focused push of my fingers, I pop the rounds out one by one. Then I rip the handgun from him and toss it aside. After that, I grab him by the collar and drive my forehead straight into his nose. Psycho grunts in pain and slams back into the wall behind him. He scrambles to pat himself down, searching for anything else he can use to fight back. I pull out a short blade for a proper fight. I tell him I'm sending him to hell right now. Then I charge, blade aimed straight at Psycho's vital points. But just as I swing to finish him off, I detect something off. A figure suddenly phases through the wall, cutting off my attack. I immediately sidestep to evade his sudden strike. He flies straight at me and we get tangled up. In no time, I've worked out his ability. He can phase through objects, but apparently not through human bodies, an obvious limitation. I catch the gap in his guard and throw him hard to the side, but he recovers fast, completely unfazed, not even staggering. I follow up with a kick. He retreats quickly. His hat falls off in the commotion. I recognize him. It's the hero Mad Dog. I turn and demand of Psycho why he's playing dirty. We agreed on one-on-one, yet he snuck in backup. Psycho scratches his head and laughs it off, casually pretending he never agreed to come alone, telling me not to sweat the details. He studies me with an amused look and speculates that I'm not avoiding Lightning's ability by choice. I simply can't use it right now. I have no patience for his chatter and charge directly at Mad Dog. Mad Dog is nimble. He sidesteps my attacks with ease. Psycho keeps needling me from the side, speculating that my ability has a time or usage limit. He even helpfully warns me that Mad Dog is nothing like him, particularly brutal in a fight, and if I have nothing else to throw at them, today might be where I die. I clench my jaw and tell myself, I will not die here. I'm surrounded on both sides, no way out but through. I have to find a way to break this open. I reach out and grab the wall beside me, using it for leverage to spin my body around. Landing steadily, I sprint up to higher ground and leap off to put distance between us. Psycho watches my sequence of moves, eyes widening, quietly theorizing that my ability might trigger through physical contact. Mad Dog's expression darkens and he tells Psycho to stop daydreaming, reminding him to give chase while there's still time. He calls Psycho out too, straight up saying Psycho kept him off the league's radar because he wanted to capture me alone. Psycho shrugs, admitting I'm clearly formidable, and that he's glad he brought Mad Dog along. With that, the two prepare to join forces and come after me all over again. I slip into a hidden corner and a round of violent coughing overtakes me. I was careless just now. Mad Dog's sidekick landed clean and I can feel the damage churning inside. Mad Dog is not just physically powerful. His ability is particularly difficult to deal with. What's worse, his ability happens to counter mine directly. There's no way I can fully master his ability in the short time I have. Given that, I decide there's really only one play: deal with the relatively easier Psycho first. Mad Dog quickly picks up on my presence. He dashes immediately toward the direction where I'm hiding. When he arrives, all he finds is a scattering of shattered glass on the ground. As he bends down to examine a piece, I've already copied his phasing ability. I go straight for Psycho, ready to catch him completely off guard. Psycho spots me the moment I move. He raises his gun and fires immediately. I deflect with my blade, while simultaneously slinging the curved blade at my waist. It strikes his right arm with precision, robbing him of the strength to hold the gun. I close the gap fast and find the blade didn't go deep enough. Nowhere near fatal. I need one more hit. I steady my focus, build force in my wrist, and raise my hand for one final strike at his vitals. But before I can move, Mad Dog comes charging in. A devastating blow lands on me. The force of it launches me off my feet. He flickers instantly to my back, locking his arm tight around my throat. The suffocation hits immediately. My breathing locks up, and my consciousness begins to blur. Meanwhile, from high above, a small group watches the intense battle unfolding below. Rachel, the disgraced noble, asks Captain Angie why he would bother saving me. The scarred man standing beside them speaks up to explain. He says that in a game like this you want as many cards on the table as possible. Keeping me alive serves a purpose. I have no intention of dying quietly. My fingertips suddenly surge with force, and I jab hard into his eyes. Mad Dog recoils in pain and is forced to release his grip. I seize the moment and roll quickly to my feet, then I swing a hard kick straight at him. He dodges fast to the side. In the chaos, Psycho suddenly turns his gun on Mad Dog. The bullet punches through Mad Dog's body and still comes flying at me. I dodge to the side in time, but the stray shot grazes my waist. Blood seeps through immediately. Psycho sees his trick worked and lets a satisfied smirk cross his face. He slips away quickly into the shadows to hide. I press a hand over my bleeding side, holding the searing pain at bay, senses on high alert. The next second, Psycho hurls a grenade from the darkness. The situation deteriorates sharply. The moment the explosion goes off, I throw myself clear instantly. The moment I land, Mad Dog appears right in front of me. Before I can brace, a kick comes flying in. I'm knocked to the ground again. My fingers move slowly against the ground, quietly gathering force for a counterattack. Mad Dog steps toward me and speaks, acknowledges that I hit hard. He says he now understands why Lightning losing to me was no accident. As he speaks, Mad Dog grabs me by the throat and hauls me upright, certain I'm too dangerous. He decides I'm a threat that can't be left alive. He's settling this today, for good. But the words have barely left his mouth when he snaps his head around, sensing an unfamiliar presence closing in. A tall, imposing figure appears without warning. In the next second, Mad Dog is cut down in a single blow. His head rolls to the ground, body dropping straight down. My life is spared by a hair. Rachel peers out from behind the grim figure who appeared out of nowhere. Psycho takes one look at the sudden array of troublesome newcomers, reads the situation and knows it's not in his favor. He sighs, pinches the bridge of his nose, and quietly retreats. Revenge will have to wait. Captain Angie glances at me lying crumpled on the ground and orders his people to take me along. When I come to again, I'm lying in a hospital bed. A man in a white coat is muttering beside me, saying my breathing and pulse are both back to normal. The gunshot wound on my waist has healed far faster than expected. He also mentions that Rachel changed my clothes. I wait for a moment when he isn't looking, slip quietly out of bed, and pick up a scalpel from the table. The white coat is still rambling on, saying he needs to give me another nutritional IV to help the recovery along. But when he turns around, the bed is empty. I'm nowhere to be seen. I've already moved around, behind him, scalpel pressed firmly against his back. He doesn't even flinch, calmly telling me that if I'm going to threaten someone from behind, I should hold the blade horizontal. He explains that if the angle is off and luck isn't on my side, the blade tends to catch on the ribs. I tighten my grip on the scalpel and demand coldly to know who he is. The poison doctor, Victor, introduces himself, then jokes that I shouldn't treat my savior this way. I study him for a few seconds, and after weighing the situation, I put the scalpel away. Then the door is gently pushed open. A girl in uniform with twin pigtails walks in. Must be the Rachel Victor just mentioned. She says the captain wants to see us, and gestures for Victor to come along. The three of us walk down the corridor at an easy pace, the air between us momentarily calm. Along the way, Rachel hands me an apple, and I take a bite, chewing slowly. She tilts her head and teases me, asking if I'm really not worried the apple might be poisoned, given how unfazed I look. I glance at her flatly and tell her that poison has no effect on me. Then she suddenly fixes her eyes on the space in my hand, puzzled, asking where the apple core is gone. I swallow, and casually let her know I ate it too, core and all. Rachel's face goes comically wide with shock. Then she laughs, finding me genuinely amusing. I look composed on the outside, but I'm running through options at full speed inside. The calories from the apple are enough to activate my ability once. They're most likely bringing me to meet others in their group. If I'm going to move, it has to be now. Victor clearly isn't a fighter. Taking him out would probably be a matter of seconds. The problem is Rachel right beside me. I don't have enough confidence that I can shake her off. Still mid-thought, Rachel seems to read exactly what I'm thinking. She smiles and says I've already missed my window. I look ahead, the door is shut, and I can just barely sense the presence beyond it. The moment to act has already passed. I'll have to face whatever comes next head on. Rachel smiles and welcomes me to the Anonyms base. Victor stands beside her, silent the whole time. After the war between the Villain Alliance and the Hero League, the survivors who remained are the Anonyms. Though among this group, the only one who actually fought in that war is the captain himself. As she says this, Rachel leads me further inside, cheerfully introducing me to the members as we go. The brooding man, John, gives me a brief, cold glance and doesn't say a single word. I scan the people in the room and wonder aloud who the captain is. Rachel immediately pulls Angie over, introducing him with a bright, eager voice. Meanwhile, inside Branch 17 of the Hero League, the atmosphere is suffocating. The branch director glares at Psycho with fury, berating him for his incompetence. How could he just stand there and let Mad Dog die? Psycho shrugs with an unbothered expression, explaining lamely that the enemy was simply too strong and he had no way to fight back. The director's face goes green with anger. Mad Dog had such a promising future, and the upper echelons had invested heavily in developing him. This was never going to go unanswered. Psycho leans in closer, slapping on a flattering grin, and admits he came to ask the director for help. The director claws at his hair in frustration, muttering that he regrets ever taking this branch director post. He misses the days when he worked in the field and things were simpler. Psycho dangles the information like bait, saying the director would be stunned if he knew who the killer was, and that it would actually get him off the hook. The director snaps at him to stop wasting time and just say it. Only then does Psycho take his time and drop the name, Angie. The director freezes, frowning as his mind begins to work. The next second he grabs his own hair and asks urgently if it's the Angie, the famous one. Psycho nods to confirm, and the director explodes. He curses at Psycho, demanding to know why he sat on something this important till now. Before the words are even out, the director turns away in a panic, preparing to issue an emergency alert immediately. He needs to mobilize every hero available to deal with a threat as dangerous as Angie. Back at the Anonyms base, Angie finishes introducing me to the group in the base, then opens it up. Who wants to go first and test me? Rachel raises her hand instantly, eyes blazing with barely contained excitement. She says she's been waiting for this moment for a long time, and tells me to show her what I've really got. I watch as she rips a cloth away to reveal a massive blade underneath. Without another word, she charges straight at me. I react immediately, sidestepping to dodge her strike and not letting her close the distance. The blow carries tremendous force. When it misses, it cleaves clean through the table beside us. The moment Rachel pulls her blade back, I grab the hilt. I drive my weight into it and use the leverage to flip her hard to the ground, breaking her balance. I then plant my foot and deliver a solid kick that sends her flying. Her body slams into the wall with a heavy thud, unable to get up for a moment. I move in quickly, pressing my knee against her head and pinning her to the wall. I draw my fist back, ready to come down. Seeing the situation is lost, she immediately calls it. I lower my fist and step back. I watch Rachel brace herself against the cold wall and slowly pick herself up off the ground. Then she reaches out her hand on her own and shakes mine. Not a trace of bitterness about losing. Victor mutters from the side, asking if that's it already. He immediately softens it, suggesting that's probably a fine place to stop. I turn to Angie and the others, asking why the Anonyms chose to save me. I want to understand what's really behind that move, what they're after. Angie looks me straight in the eye and gives his answer without hesitation. Their goal is to bring down the Hero League, and that league is the very organization responsible for my sister's death. My heart jolts. I clench my fist and demand sharply how he could possibly know about that. Angie's eyes grow distant, and his thoughts drift back to a night from the past. That night, he slipped quietly into the Count's villa and walked up to greet him. The Count heard him and turned slowly. He said it had been a long time. Then he turned the question back on Angie, asking if he was curious why a retired old man like himself had reached out. Angie responded steadily, admitting it would be a lie to say he wasn't curious. The Count let out a quiet sigh and told Angie plainly that he had a child he hoped Angie would look after. Angie raised an eyebrow, a note of mockery in his voice, asking if the Count had grown attached to a stray he raised himself. At those words, the Count's expression went cold in an instant. He raised a hand and tapped the weapon at his side in quiet warning. Then the Count told Angie sternly that his growing arrogance was not a good look. Angie noted inwardly that even if the Count was no longer what he once was, the weight of his presence was still enough to command fear. He reeled himself in, took a seat, and told the Count to speak. The Count began, his tone even, saying to call her the hero killer for now. He described me as naturally gifted for combat and unusually dedicated in training. Given enough time, I would develop into something formidable. The problem was that the timing wasn't right yet. It was too soon. If I faced a truly dangerous opponent right now, I wouldn't survive. Angie caught on immediately. He asked directly whether the Count actually wanted him to keep someone as volatile as me around. The Count gave a small nod. He said he understood that Angie's goal was to destroy the League, but along the way, a certain woman would be impossible to avoid. He reminded Angie that having fought in the war, he knew better than anyone. Even if every hero in the League was eliminated, as long as that woman was still breathing, it would all be for nothing. Angie pressed him. Was the Count saying he believed I could do it? That I could deal with that woman? The Count spoke with certainty. The day would come when I could. Angie thought for a moment, then agreed, but drew a clear line. If anything happened to me, it wasn't on him. The Count let out a dry laugh, saying there was no need to worry about me. He had already taught me everything I needed. What Angie should worry about was not getting himself hurt by me instead. The memory ends. Angie pulls his thoughts back and looks at me again. I'm still wrapped in fury, the tension radiating off me in waves. Faced with my anger, Angie stays calm and asks whether I truly want to find the one who killed my family, or whether I just want to throw my life away on pointless fighting. I squeeze my fist tighter, anger straining against any restraint, and snap that he still hasn't answered my question. Then I demanded again, how does he know about my sister? John, standing off to the side, decides I don't know my place, and suddenly moves. His technique is fast and razor sharp, driving straight at my face. My pupils contract. Every muscle in my body locks in on instinct as I lock eyes with his movements. But just as the strike is about to land, John freezes completely, unable to move. Angie has used his ability to stop him, keeping the confrontation from escalating. Angie's voice carries a warning as he tells John to stand down and stop acting recklessly. I think to myself, what a complete mess. It's genuinely surprising that a group this undisciplined has managed to survive this long. Angie releases his hold on John and says coldly that there won't be a next time. Victor throws up his hands with an impatient sigh, saying this is exactly why they never make any progress, urging everyone to stop wasting energy on nonsense like this. Rachel just laughs it off, saying she finds their dynamic perfectly entertaining, and tells Victor to mind his own business. I watch their argument in silence, and I've already made up my mind. They have no intention of answering my question directly. They've been dodging it from the start. Saving me was about needing my strength for something, and they happen to have information I don't. That makes their next move completely predictable. They'll offer a trade. Given my current situation, I can't afford to refuse whatever terms they put forward, but if I want any leverage, I need to break the ice first and name what's really going on. I speak first and lay it out plainly. They want to use what they know as a bargaining chip in exchange for my help. Angie raises an eyebrow, a trace of approval in his voice. As he says I catch on fast. I nod and accept, saying I'm willing to join them. As for how Angie knows about my sister, I'll have plenty of time to figure that out later. But right now, I want honesty. What exactly is the plan, and what's the real goal? Victor steps forward, his expression serious, and lays out the current objective. The goal is to make Branch 17 of the Hero League disappear entirely. The room goes silent for a beat. I blink, struggling to believe what I just heard. A plan this insane can't possibly be pulled off by just 4 people. I can't help but ask if they've all lost their minds. Angie corrects me calmly. I miscounted. With me, that's 5. Almost at the same moment, in a stretch of open desert somewhere, a golden-haired female hero is asking her assistant about the schedule ahead. The blue-haired assistant holds up the itinerary and says the next 2 weeks are packed solid, weekends included. Once the villains here are dealt with today, she's due immediately on set for a league promotional shoot. The blue-haired assistant quickly bows her head in apology, but Victoria waves it off with a light, carefree tone. Victoria laughs to herself, a note of self-satisfaction in it, musing that she doesn't get a single moment to breathe, all because she's simply too good at what she does. She pauses and adds that being the face of heroes comes with a lot of responsibility. The position isn't exactly easy to hold. Suddenly, a massive explosion in the distance shatters the desert's silence. Victoria goes alert in an instant and says quietly that someone seems to be heading this way. Then a mob of villains comes screaming toward them, riding vehicles mounted with heavy weapons, howling that they're going to tear apart the League's poster girl and avenge their fallen comrades. The villains spot Victoria blocking their path, but not one of them takes her seriously. Some don't even recognize her as the League's flagship hero. They just say to run her over and keep moving. Victoria lets her eyes flicker with a slight lift, softly murmuring the name of her ability, Sweet Dreams. A golden glow blooms around her. A series of thunderous booms follows. Blazing golden pillars of light plunge from the sky, crashing into the earth with tremendous force. She surveys the area with cold eyes. Once she confirms there are no reporters or cameras recording, she drops any pretense of restraint. With no optics to manage, there's no need to hold back. She lets her power go entirely unchecked. The moment she finishes thinking, she raises her hand with a casual flick. Immense golden energy condenses into a volley of razor-sharp blades, sweeping outward on a roaring wind. A sharp crack tears through the air as the energy blades move like lightning, cutting through the crowd in an instant. In the blink of an eye, every last villain is obliterated by the single strike. No room to resist, not even a little. Even the dark clouds overhead are split apart by the force, sunlight breaking through and flooding the open sky. Victoria stretches languidly, her tone still breezy, wondering aloud where to get a drink, and settles on Branch 17. Back at the Anonym's base at that same moment, John says flatly that he wants nothing to do with me, then turns on Rachel and demands to know why she didn't use her ability just now, why she was happy to lose. Rachel shakes her head and pushes back seriously, asking if John actually wanted her to kill me. She says she doesn't want that at all. She actually likes me. She finds me interesting, pretty, and refreshingly straightforward. Victor strokes his chin, his voice carrying a knowing edge, saying he wouldn't be so sure about that. He admits I nearly fooled even him. He says plainly that everything I do is a calculated move. Even the anger I showed earlier could easily have been a performance. Rachel looks confused and asks why Victor would think that. Victor explains slowly, my composure throughout was simply too consistent to be natural. From the moment we first met in the exam room to just before I was about to leave the base, my heartbeat never changed. Not even a flicker of the emotional fluctuation you'd expect. Rachel's eyes go wide as it clicks, nodding and murmuring that it's a striking contrast to Angie. She jokes that Angie puts on that cool, composed face while his inner world is probably in total chaos. At that point, Angie cuts off the idle chatter. He announces his decision as captain, his expression serious. The mission to raid Branch 17, I'll be going in with them. Rachel immediately cheers, thrilled by the arrangement. Angie then shifts his eyes to John. His voice is ice cold as he reiterates, no going rogue without his permission. He warns John that if he pulls another stunt like that, he'll be executed on the spot. No exceptions. Victor seizes the chance to smooth things over, announcing that he's hungry and suggesting they eat first. Rachel jumps in immediately, enthusiastically herding everyone out the door. Once the meal is over, I slip away from the group on my own. I head to the training area in the base, intent on getting in extra work. I know perfectly well that the relative calm of these days is a trap. I need to get stronger, fast. As I train, I keep running through past fights in my head, cataloging every weakness, thinking about how to close the gaps. Among all the people I've encountered recently, Angie stands out the most. Angie's presence alone is crushing. The gap between his strength and mine is staggering. Even Mad Dog, who was no slouch, wasn't even in the same category compared to Angie, which meant the distance between Angie and me was almost impossible to measure. And I know that somewhere out there are heroes even stronger than Angie. At my current level, I have no business fighting those at the top. As I work through all of this, I press the timer down. Then I push my ability to its limit, drilling with Lightning's ability I took from him. I grit my teeth and hold on, seeing how long I can actually sustain it. The seconds tick by, and I stare at the timer, unable to keep the frown from forming. For now, this ability maxes out at this duration. It's better than yesterday, but not by nearly enough to carry me through what's coming. I raise my arm to cover my eyes and let myself rest for a moment, planning to run through the other abilities next. Then, without warning, the night my sister died flashes across my mind. She used every last bit of strength she had to hold me close, begging me to survive no matter what. She kept telling me to never give up, no matter how hard things got. I sit up immediately and push myself back into training. For my sister, quitting halfway is never an option. This path of revenge has only just begun, and I believe as long as I keep fighting, I will avenge her. My ability by nature grows through taking what belongs to others, kill every enemy that crosses my path, strip their abilities away one by one and make them my own. That's always been how I've gotten stronger, moving forward through combat and by taking everything I can, constantly running into stronger opponents, constantly fighting, constantly claiming new abilities. So I will keep climbing, one step at a time, until I'm standing at the same level as the strongest there are. When night falls, I head to the part-time job at the small shop. The shop is as quiet as always, nearly no customers in the whole place. The owner looks me over when he sees me and notices something is off, asking if I got into a fight. I give a brief response without elaborating, same as always. The owner is used to this by now and doesn't push further. He just tells me to get to work. I pick up a rag and start wiping down the tables, then grab a mop and work through the floor. I go through the motions mechanically, expression calm but mind elsewhere. The owner seems to read what's in my head. He brings it up first, asking if I'm thinking of leaving. The image of Psycho barging in the last time flashes through my mind immediately. I know I can't count on being able to protect the owner every time. I set down what I'm holding and slowly nod. It's not that I want to leave, it's that I can't keep doing this part-time job anymore. My identity has been compromised. Staying will only bring more trouble down on him. The owner smiles quietly, saying it was him who kept asking me to stay in the first place. It would be wrong to push it now. He tells me I'm welcome back whenever I want. Then he cracks a joke to lighten the air, saying since business is slow anyway, I should just come by and visit, and reminds me with a grin that he still expects to be paid every cent he's owed. Then, as if just remembering something, he turns and points toward the door, asking if I know the person outside. I follow his gaze, and it's Psycho. Every alarm in my head goes off instantly as I run through possible responses. I steer the owner to safety first, then I move out through the door at a brisk pace. I land a solid hit on Psycho, grab him by the collar, and launch him with a hard kick. When Psycho hits the ground, I'm already on top of him, pressing him down and following up. Then I draw my weapon and point it at him. Just as I'm about to strike, my attention snaps back to reality. I look at his hands, completely empty. He came tonight without any weapons. That changes things. I can't just move on him. I turn back and tell the owner I'm stepping out for a bit. The owner gives me a nod, his eyes full of concern, but he doesn't ask. I fall into step behind Psycho as we walk, neither of us saying anything. We come to a stop at a vending machine. Psycho steps forward and buys 2 drinks. He tosses one to me without looking. He says the mint chocolate flavor is good, and that I should try it. I close my hand around the bottle, and tell him in a flat voice that he's crossed a line. Psycho doesn't give the warning any weight. He moves to a bench under a streetlight and sits down. He says he didn't expect me to actually follow along and tells me to relax. He claims what happened last time was just a bit of fun. He wasn't actually coming after me. To make the point, he spreads both hands open, showing he's unarmed and means no harm right now. Even so, watching him act this casually doesn't put me at ease. I genuinely can't read Psycho's angle. Whether this is about avenging Mad Dog or something else entirely, I can't tell. Psycho is too calculating and too unpredictable. He doesn't behave in ways you can anticipate. I take the other bench and ask him directly what he wants. Psycho chuckles at my expression and decides to stop going in circles. He points at me directly, then seriously proposes that I become his assistant. I just stare at him, with nothing to say. I ask if he has any idea what he's actually suggesting. If this is just his idea of a joke, it's a bit much. Psycho cuts me off immediately, and with more gravity than I expect from him, says he's completely serious. Whether it's freely changing form, controlling fire, or any other ability, only those who are chosen can possess them. These individuals wield a power that defies conventional understanding. Their bodies are as durable as steel, and their lifespans far exceed those of ordinary people. But the bitter irony is that almost none of them die of natural causes. Heroes killed the way Mad Dog was. That's far from unusual among ability users. After returning to the Hero League, Psycho walks straight into the morgue. Branch 17's doctor, Song Yuna, comes forward to meet him immediately. Song Yuna mentions that Mad Dog served as Psycho's partner for over a decade. She imagines he must be taking it hard. She also adds that Mad Dog died cleanly. The head was severed outright. He probably didn't suffer much. Then Song Yuna shifts the subject, asking how things went on his end with me. Psycho sounds a little sore about it, saying I turned him down in under a second. Looks like someone got there first and snatched the talent he wanted right out from under him. Song Yuna studies him with an arched brow, saying he doesn't look very upset about it. Psycho immediately lights up, saying even if I turned him down, I still agreed to do him one small favor. Song Yuna asks curiously what favor, and Psycho waves her off, deliberately playing it mysterious. Psycho says the real reason he came to the morgue was to pick something up. He eyes Mad Dog's belongings and mutters that he's had his eye on those gloves for a while. Finally got them. Song Yuna calls after him softly as he heads out, warning him that things are likely going to get serious at Branch 17 soon. He should be careful. Psycho walks out of the morgue with the gloves, his mind turning over everything he knows about me. He thinks to himself that my growth rate is almost absurd. I've gotten noticeably stronger in just a short span of time. He's genuinely looking forward to more encounters down the line. The higher-ups in the league will probably write me off as a trivial spark, but he knows better. Ability users don't grow on any predictable curve. Potential hides itself until it doesn't. Given the right moment, even the faintest spark can catch and spread until it burns everything in its path. He can't help but wonder just what kind of monster I'll turn into next. Meanwhile, on a rooftop on the other side of the city, the anonyms are gathered together, running through the plan to raid Branch 17. I speak up first, asking about the specifics of how we're doing this. Rachel maps it out with her hands, excited, saying we charge straight in, blow a hole through their defenses, and take everyone out in one go. Victor lays it out even more bluntly. It's a direct assault. John, face blank as always, delivers his contribution in 3 cold words: leave no survivors. A plan with no structure like that winning anything would be a miracle. I press my hand to my forehead. These people are reckless to the point of madness. I turn to Angie, waiting for something with actual thought behind it. Angie speaks slowly, suggesting we start with the Security Corps as our entry point. He explains that the Security Corps is a direct subsidiary of the Hero League, whose core function is maintaining order throughout the city. Most of its members can't use abilities, and they typically handle lower-risk routine assignments. Rachel wrinkles her nose, saying the Security Corps is too weak to bother spending energy on. I side with Angie. The fewer enemies on the field, the better. Taking out the weaker ones first is necessary. Once the Corps falls, the League will redirect its focus our way, even without knowing who their commander is. The psychological pressure alone will be significant. Victor suddenly claps his hands, as if something has just come back to him, and jumps in. He mentions hearing that the Security Corps chief in District 17 is a retired hero, not someone to take lightly. If he gets involved, every part of what follows becomes more complicated. Angie nods in agreement, saying the retired chief has to be neutralized first, before the rest of the operation can move forward cleanly. Rachel is eager to take the assignment. I lower her hand and say this one should go to me. I explain that since I can't fully trust them yet, they probably feel the same about me. A lack of trust gets things done, so let this be the chance to demonstrate what I can do, and that I mean it. Angie curves his mouth into a small smile and tells me it's a good idea, but he adds that it isn't a fair trade on its own, and asks if there's something I want in return. I look at him evenly and say plainly that his ability looks outstanding. That's what I want. As night falls, I return to my room and go through my weapons and gear one by one. Every piece gets careful attention, not a single corner cut. How this goes depends on it. As I check everything over, I run the plan on a loop in my head, anticipating anything that could go wrong, making sure I'm not walking in underprepared. I've just finished setting the last weapon down when the phone on the table vibrates. I pick it up and open it. A message from Rachel. She's telling me to get ready and move soon. The night deepens. The city settles into silence. I move like a shadow, sprinting toward the target. Under the cover of darkness, I launch upward and land on the roof of a building. I push off hard with both feet and leap from the edge. My body drops fast, and in the brief pause at the midpoint of the fall, my fingers pull the mechanism and send out a weapon wound with steel wire. The wire coils precisely around a stone column above. I use the tension to adjust my descent and come down in control. Both feet touch the ground without a sound. I turn immediately and fix my eyes on the objective. The watchtower isn't far. 2 Security Corps members stand below it, chatting and laughing, completely relaxed. Neither of them has any idea that something dangerous is already closing in through the dark. As I get closer, one of them finally senses something. He turns his head and raises his weapon in a reflex. He sweeps his eyes around but doesn't find a single trace of anyone. The other walks over, confused, asking what's wrong. The first one frowns and mutters that it's probably just a stray cat. I take that opening. I step out of the shadows and strike, fast, no hesitation. The security member shouts in alarm and scrambles to raise his weapon, but it's too late. I close my hand around the barrel, use the leverage to drain his force, and pull the weapon clean from his grip. One clean strike follows. He hits the ground, unable to fight back. I tell him to hand over the radio and I'll let him live. But even cornered, he reaches toward the radio on his belt, refusing to cooperate. I swing my hand down and knock the radio out of reach, cutting off that option. Then one hard hit to the forehead. If he won't play along, then they all die. Once inside the building, I run into a few more security members on patrol. I close the gap fast, grab one by the collar, and drive him against the wall, pinned and immovable. A single punch follows, punching clean through the wall behind him. In no time at all, every security member in the building has been cleared. With all obstacles dealt with, I make my way down the corridor toward a door deep in the building. I raise my hand and push it open. Inside, a figure comes into view. It's the retired hero, Gray Shadow. He asks immediately if all his people are dead at my hands. I close the door behind me and answer without emotion. Probably. What I can say for certain is that he'll die by mine. Gray Shadow lets out a quiet laugh, commenting on all the recent unrest in District 17. He says I'm the one behind all of it. He also notes I'm the one who took down both Lightning and Mad Dog. I'm done talking. I drop into a fighting stance without another word. Gray Shadow strikes first. He hurls the axe in his hand straight at me without hesitation. I reach out and catch the handle precisely, absorbing the full force cleanly. Then I use the momentum to fling it straight back at his face with the same force. He reacts quickly, twisting out of the way. The axe buries itself in the wall behind him. I tell him straight that there's no point wasting time on probing moves. Better to go all in from the start. Gray Shadow rolls up his sleeves, the air around him sharpening. He plants both feet and pushes off the ground, driving hard in my direction. We collide in an instant. The exchange of strikes and blocks flows at a pace that's hard to follow. In the middle of the fight, I find an opening. A punch lands in his chest. I follow immediately, throwing a heavy kick into his abdomen. But Gray Shadow doesn't take that lying down. He snatches my ankle without hesitation. He wrenches and drives, and launches me hard into the wall beside us. I use the phasing ability I copied earlier, passing straight through the wall and landing cleanly on the other side. Gray Shadow doesn't hesitate. He circles around and comes through from the other side, driving toward me again with even more force. A punch comes from my face, more vicious than before. I shift and deflect to shed the force, then grab his arm in the same motion, twisting and using his own momentum against him. I slam him to the ground with the redirected force. Then I move in immediately to hold him down. He strains against it, trying to force himself upright, to get out from under my control. I lock my legs over his torso and keep him down. Then I dig my foot into his neck and shoulder. As the pain stalls him for a split second, I leap up to deliver the finishing blow. But he uses that exact window to wrench himself free with a burst of force. Gray Shadow turns it over in his mind. My movements are irregular and unpredictable. Add to that the physical conditioning needed to execute these techniques with ease, and it points to exceptional mastery of close quarters combat. But what genuinely unsettles him is something deeper, not the technique or the body behind it, but a raw fighting instinct that lives in my bones. That instinct owes something to ability, yes, but what's more alarming are the marks left behind by training. He concludes that I must have been put through something brutal, like torture disguised as a regimen. Only the results aren't quite there yet. Once he's taken my measure, Gray Shadow lets a dark intention settle over him. He'll make this slow, break me down piece by piece, body and will alike, until there's nothing left. Watching Gray Shadow's arrogant, self-important display, I hold back a cold laugh. This man has absolutely no idea where he stands. He's been looking down on me the entire time. He hasn't figured out which one of us actually has the upper hand. At any point I'd chosen to go for the kill, he would already be dead several times over. But I can't finish him off that easily. I need to push him until he's using his full power. I have to wring every last drop of value out of him. Make him a stepping stone I can use to climb higher. So instead I simply surge forward and drive a hard punch into his temple. Gray Shadow recoils in pain, instinctively bringing his hand to his head. His movements stall. I read the opening precisely, and throw a heavy kick straight into his abdomen. He twists urgently to the side and barely dodges. I press in without letting up, launching into a relentless chain of strikes. Every punch drives toward his vital points. To me, he's nothing more than prey I can play with however I want, but I have to keep it measured. Let him push his ability to its limit, without letting him die. Catching him mid-evasion, I plant my foot and send him launching across the room with a powerful kick. A deep, heavy impact rings out as Gray Shadow crashes down. He's wedged into the rubble, clutching his chest as a violent cough tears through him, his breathing ragged. I stand in place and watch him, calculating quietly. The timing feels about right. He's been pushed this far. He ought to finally show what he's really made of. The next second, an axe suddenly comes hurling at me from the direction of the rubble. I roll out of the way in a flash. The axe clips the edge of my clothes and buries itself in the wall behind me. I land beside the wall. Gray Shadow has already risen slowly from the rubble. His eyes have gone dark and menacing. I've pushed him to his limit and he is furious. He's made up his mind he's going to make me kneel and beg, and force everything out of me. I curl my lips slightly. Then I pull out the nunchaku. A sharp crack cuts through the air as I whip my wrist, and I taunt him to go ahead and try. At the same time, I run through what I know about abilities in my head. The way the body needs calories to move, using an ability requires ASD as its energy source. In a fight between ability users, the outcome often comes down to who can use their ESD more efficiently. Every user's constitution is different, which means the ASD reserves in their body vary dramatically. Some have very little, others have reserves far beyond that of an ordinary person. The energy cost of an ability also varies. Some drain slowly, while others empty your reserves within seconds. For example, Lightning's ability holds steady for over 5 minutes when I use it, but Mad Dog's phasing ability lasts only a few seconds. That means energy management in a fight is essential. Burning through it blindly is not an option. No strategy, no tactics, just swinging wildly is a guaranteed way to die. So in this fight, I have to read the rhythm of his energy output, avoid the blows that could kill me, take the ones I can absorb head on, wait for his reserves to run low, and then strike. Every moment of patience and restraint is buying time for the perfect counter. One hit to finish it. Gray Shadow swings his weapon again, and I raise the nunchaku and block it firmly. He seizes the moment and drives his fist at my lower abdomen. A sharp, cunning angle. I grit my teeth and take it. Through the searing pain, I counter with a strike to his ribs, then follow with a punch to his head, giving him no room to breathe. Gray Shadow lets out a muffled grunt of pain and staggers. I remind myself to keep my ability in reserve for the critical moment. For now, it's just physical weapons. He may be known as a fighter and his strength is no joke, but my close quarters combat is just as good. The intensity of the exchange rattles a cup off the nearby table, water dripping slowly from the edge. The fight keeps escalating. Our attacks and counters weave together in a relentless exchange, neither of us breaking away. Gray Shadow's expression begins to shift. He can't understand why he hasn't gained the upper hand. After taking another slap from me, his composure starts to crack and his movements begin to open up. I tighten my grip on the nunchaku and push through a gap in his focus. Gray Shadow's gut clenches, furious at himself for letting his guard slip. I wind up and sweep with the nunchaku, cracking it across the side of his face. Then I rush forward immediately and hit the other side with an equally hard follow-up. Gray Shadow buckles, his legs give out and I put him on the ground. I move in and pull the short blade from my waist. I close on him as he lies there and drive the blade through his hand without hesitation, pinning it to the floor. Gray Shadow clenches his teeth against the pain. He starts to say something. I cut him off. Whether he's willing to admit it or not, I've been stronger than him since the start of this fight. He glares up at me, teeth bared, struggling hard to pull his pinned hand free. I crouch close to Gray Shadow, expression blank, voice carrying nothing but certainty. Lightning was too weak. Dealing with him was no challenge. Angie is strong enough that he's out of my current reach. Someone at Gray Shadow's level is exactly right for working on my technique. Before the words are even finished, I activate my ability and wrap him in layer upon layer of illusion. Within the illusion, countless invisible blades materialize and drive through his body from every direction. Blood seeps through the illusion and soaks his clothes, steadily eroding his will and his strength. Gray Shadow thrashes in agony inside the illusion, his eyes swimming with fear and despair, unable to tell what's real. I watch him without a trace of sympathy, looking on as he staggers and collapses against the window ledge. The suffering inside the illusion continues unabated. I only need to wait for the right moment. In reality, Gray Shadow is already a broken man, screaming curses at me with the hysteria of someone coming undone. He rages that I'm a fool for openly defying the League, and swears my end will be far worse than his. Once he loses consciousness entirely, that will be the moment to take his ability and complete my growth. The time is now. I step forward, one hand closes around his throat and I drive him to the edge of the platform. Maybe he's right, but how ugly my death turns out to be, he won't live to see it. Gray Shadow shatters completely. All his strength melts away as he breaks down in tears, begging for his life. I tell him coldly to open his eyes and face exactly what it looks like to truly die. Then I release my grip on his collar and push him off the tower. His body drops fast and slams onto the vehicle below with a bone-crushing impact. The car crumples and caves under the force, a screech of twisting metal filling the air. Then silence. I put away the short blade and walk away from the scene without looking back. With Gray Shadow's ability taken, it's time to move on to the next step. My eyes lock onto the tower in the distance. I drive off the ground and sprint toward the target. Then an unexplained chill sweeps across my entire body. My movement falters. I hang suspended mid-air. A strong premonition of danger grows sharper with every passing second. I scan quickly and fix on a figure on the ground below. A woman. The presence radiating off her is suffocating. She reaches up and removes her hat, her gaze locking on me in the air with perfect precision. I recognize her immediately. She's the flagship hero of the Hero League. Someone of her standing won't let me walk away. Not a chance. Sure enough, the next second she is right in front of me. Victoria flicks her fingers at me in greeting, a playful smile on her lips. Without the slightest warning, a massive force crashes into me, domineering and explosive. I'm blasted away like a kite with its string cut. I tear through the walls of several low buildings in succession before slamming hard into the ground. Every bone in my body screams with pain. I press against the cold ground and force myself to sit up. I look at her, eyes heavy. Victoria is still standing up high, head tilted down, studying her own hand, puzzled that I managed to catch her strike barehanded. The next second, Victoria drops and lands in front of me without a sound. Her nose twitches slightly. She notes that my body carries a faint smell of blood. Then she asks what I was doing just now. I watch her every move and tell her coldly that I'm not obligated to answer. Victoria lets out a soft snort, voice half sultry, half icy. She says my voice is so pleasant it actually makes her want to kill me. I run through everything I know about her in my head. The Elder Council consists of 9 ability users recognized as the most powerful in existence, exempt from any league rules or discipline. They operate outside every restriction, with authority that surpasses both ordinary heroes and villains alike. And among those 9, Victoria is a creature who existed before the very concepts of hero and villain were born. Objectively speaking, at my current level, I am not her match. But if I can catch her off guard at the right moment, there might be the thinnest chance. When I see her expression relax slightly, a moment of distraction, I close my fist and drive it at her face. She catches my wrist without effort. My heart drops. She stopped a full force strike with bare hands, without even activating her ability. Victoria says with an impatient edge that I'm not very likable. She swings back with a punch to my face, and follows it with a rapid volley of hits. She beats me until I have nothing left to fight back with. She pauses and pinches my wrist, hoisting me up, eyes scanning my clothes. Her brow creases in genuine displeasure. She's annoyed that we're wearing matching colors. She nudges me lightly with her foot, wondering if I'm playing dead to avoid the fight. My consciousness begins to blur. The sounds around me grow faint. Victoria leans in closer as though she couldn't quite catch my muffled sounds and wants to hear better. I fight to keep from blacking out, and the moment I made the deal with Angie flashes through my mind. I told him clearly I only wanted to borrow his ability temporarily, not kill him and take it permanently. Angie looked at me and warned me with a grave expression that taking on the strong with my current level is always a gamble. Be careful. The word careful doesn't exist in my vocabulary, and I've won every gamble so far. As Victoria leans in, I raise my hand and press it against her shoulder, saying finally, I've got you. Then I immediately activate my ability and pull her power into myself. Victoria reacts in the same instant, activating her ability to counter. The force behind it is overwhelming. Two powers collide violently. I bite through the searing pain and hold on long enough to complete the transfer. The moment it's done, I wrench myself free from her ability's hold and bolt. Victoria watches the direction I fled, and a light, amused laugh escapes her. She says there's something about me that strongly reminds her of someone. I have no idea how long I ran, until every last bit of energy inside me was gone, and my consciousness sank away entirely. When I open my eyes again, I'm lying in a room at the Anonyms base. Rachel smiles and teases me. Victor mutters quietly that I always manage to leave myself in such a terrible state. I push myself up and sit, and a wave of intense hunger hits me immediately. Rachel immediately goes to get food. In no time, a pile of it is set in front of me. I pick things up and start eating, stuffing it in my mouth in huge bites. No dignity whatsoever. Rachel watches me with wide eyes, saying she can't believe how much I can eat. Victor's gaze falls on my arm. His brow knits suddenly. He asks me, hesitantly, whether my arm is broken. I pull back my sleeve to show the deformed arm, and tell him flatly that one night of sleep will fix it. The calm in my voice comes from knowing exactly what my own ability can do. But Victor steps forward anyway, and tends to the deformed arm with careful, practiced hands. Rachel then says the preparations to raid Branch 17 are mostly in place. She says they've received a confirmed tip that the heroes in Branch 17 will all be gathered there in the near future. So once they're all inside the target building, we blow it all at once. I stop eating and think it through calmly. With Grey Shadow dead, Branch 17 security will have tightened considerably. The real question is how to get a large quantity of explosives in. Angie walks into the room at that moment, a wolfish smile on his face, saying he knows someone who can handle that. Speak of the devil. A courier number 9 appears at the entrance, muttering complaints about whoever ordered so much mint chocolate being out of their mind. He also puzzles over the fact that this building wasn't here before. A stream of grumbling later, the clear sound of the doorbell rings. We pull together quickly and take positions near the door. Rachel goes forward and opens it. Courier number 9 takes one look at the inside of the base and his expression turns uneasy. He sets the package down and tries to make a quick exit. He's barely turned around when Angie smiles his crooked smile and tells us to grab him. Number 9 reacts fast. He vaults up and lands on the roof of the base in one leap. We give chase immediately, not giving him any room to run, just as he lands on the roof of another building. The space around him suddenly distorts and locks him in place. I pull out a marble fast, aim at the roof under number 9 feet and throw. The marble punches through the tiles, the roof caves immediately. I follow up immediately with another marble. Number 9 has nothing to stand on. He staggers and falls to the floor below. He's barely gotten his footing back. When John lunges forward without delay, a punch drives straight for his face. Number 9 spins fast. He flicks a gold coin. John's fist passes through empty air. By the time John looks up, number 9 has already jumped back to the rooftop. He puts on an injured expression, complaining that jumping someone without a word is out of line. John flickers and is on the roof with him in an instant. I follow close behind, quietly circling to number 9's back, flanking him from both sides with John. Number 9 puts on a front of composure, talking himself up and saying he's not someone to mess with. He tries to provoke us, asking if we can even keep up with his speed. I cut through it with a flat voice. If he were really that fast, he would have run already. He's nowhere near that level. I break down his ability further. The window between when he throws the gold coin and when he catches it is when he can go invisible. But if the coin drops without him catching it, there's a stretch of time where the ability stops working. Number 9 stunned inside. He didn't expect me to read it in one pass. He scatters a whole handful of gold coins, hoping to use the same trick again and buy himself an opening to vanish. I tune out everything else and focus on the sounds around me, while tracking the arc of each coin carefully. Following the faint spinning sounds, I pinpoint his location. I close in and strike. Number 9 catches the movement and reappears with a startled expression. I grab one of the gold coins out of the air, then wind up my leg, and send him flying with a solid kick. I look down at him and say with a touch of contempt that his ability is interesting enough, but that's all it is. Number 9 pushes himself off the ground with effort, still talking back, insisting he's got tricks left. He knows full well his ability has been figured out and a straight fight is a losing battle. Right now, running is the only play. So number 9 throws the gold coins again. The coin drops. He vanishes instantly, muttering as he goes that he hopes he never sees us again. He's barely out of sight when he can't help but groan, complaining that today must be cursed. He burned through his whole hand in one shot. Just when number 9 thinks he's finally clear, Rachel appears out of nowhere. Number 9 recognizes her. She's the girl who opened the door for him. Rachel activates her ability immediately. Countless vines shoot toward number 9 at full speed. Number 9 sneers and brushes it off as some trivial trick, easy enough to dodge. But the moment he tries to move, he finds his body is being forced the wrong direction entirely. He has no control. The next second, Rachel has him completely caught. There is no escape now. When he opens his eyes again, the scene around him has completely changed. He's surrounded by a dense forest. Rachel tells him in a bright but firm voice that this is her private garden. Then she appears in front of him. She lays it out plainly. There are exactly 2 ways out. She lets him go or he kills her. She teases him, saying he doesn't look like much of a fighter. She asks if he'd like to cooperate nicely or stay here and keep her company for a while. Number 9 folds immediately. Rachel releases him. We march him along with us to CL Logistics. The company looks unremarkable from the outside, but it's anything but. For the right price, they'll guarantee delivery of anything, no questions asked. So Angie had us catch the courier and head to their base of operations to pressure the owner into shipping explosives to Branch 17. We reach the last door at the end of the corridor. Number 9 exchanges a code phrase with whoever is inside. After confirmation, the person inside slides a small window open and pokes their head out, asking what Number 9 wants. Number 9 puts on a polite smile and explains that he's come on behalf of some people who need to speak with the boss. The moment the door swings open, John moves first. He puts down the person who opened it in one clean motion. Cold, efficient, no hesitation. We continue on, pushing Number 9 ahead of us. Rachel sweeps her gaze around, asking Number 9 he isn't leading them somewhere weird. Number 9 waves his hands frantically, swearing he has no ulterior motive. The boss's room is just a few more steps. Inside the boss's room, 2 rows of bodyguards stand at attention. A buzz-cut man is alone at a table, eating, looking completely relaxed. He picks up on the noise, his voice dropping low as he asks what's going on. Number 9 scratches the back of his head with an awkward laugh and says some people want to see the boss. He tugs open his collar as he speaks, revealing a mark underneath. The buzz-cut man sees the mark, and his expression goes dark immediately. He gives the order to move. Both rows of bodyguards charge forward at once, bearing down on us. Angie steps out front. With a single move, he sweeps every bodyguard clean, fast as a flash. The moment they're down, he's already standing in front of the buzz-cut man, his presence alone pressing down like a wall. Angie demands he hand over enough explosives to take down Branch 17. In the same breath, he makes it clear he's already figured it out. The man in front of him isn't the actual boss, just someone who runs things day to day. From the back room, someone's voice bleeds through, irritated, complaining about being disturbed while in the middle of a game. A green-haired man comes out looking annoyed, glances at his men on the floor and demands to know what we're doing to his people. Angie raises an eyebrow and says dryly that the gaming addict finally decided to show up. Chain's eyes land on Angie's face. His expression goes blank with shock. The buzz-cut man scrambles and crawls to Chain's feet, crying out for his boss, a complete mess. Chain shoves him away with a kick, disgusted. He walks up to Angie and asks, in a low, flat voice, what brings him here? Privately, I'm puzzled. Chain looks nothing like I imagined. I'm genuinely curious about the history between him and Angie. At that moment, Rachel drifts over to my side. She notices me watching the 2 of them and lowers her voice to explain. She says they fought side by side during the war, and that Angie once saved Chain's life. Chain hears what Angie is after and erupts, accusing him of losing his mind and dragging Chain into this mess. Angie's tone stays even. He's not asking Chain to participate, just hand over the explosives. Chain scoffs, saying there's no difference. Either way, it's lighting a fire under yourself. He says he didn't build what he has now just to watch it burn. He's not agreeing to anything. Chain admits flat out that he has no desire to make an enemy of the League again. He's not making the same mistake twice. I step forward and remind Angie to stop going back and forth. A decision has been made. Move on it. Chain looks at me sidelong and tells me dismissively that adults are talking, and kids should stay out of it. Angie introduces me on the spot, calls me the hero killer, specifically noting that I'm the anonymous wildcard killer, and that my strength isn't something to dismiss. Chain scoffs, mocking the name wildcard killer for sounding embarrassingly dramatic. Angie's tone drops cold. He points out that I've already killed 2 heroes, implying the next one might be Chain. I look Chain directly in the eye, and tell him firmly to produce the explosives. Now, Angie presses from the same angle, telling him not to waste everyone's time. A thread of wariness works its way into Chain's thinking. He runs the numbers. If he refuses, everyone in this building probably doesn't walk out. After weighing it, he caves and agrees to supply the explosives. Once we've gone, Chain heads back to his room and sinks back into his game. The buzz-cut man and Number 9 follow him in. When Chain finishes, Number 9 seizes the moment and asks what the boss wants to do next. Chain is still grumbling about how bad the game was. He turns and shoots Number 9 a cold look, calling him a traitor. Number 9 points at the amount on the list, saying the quantity doesn't add up. It's not nearly enough to destroy Branch 17. At this level, all it'll do is antagonize the League without doing real damage. Chain shrugs, admitting he had to leave himself a way out. He's not going all in on this. He knows that once those explosives go off, the League will trace it back to them by any means necessary. He also says plainly that he doesn't believe 5 people can take down the League. The odds aren't even 1 in 10,000. Number 9 asks what would happen if we actually managed to wipe out Branch 17. Chain draws out a long pause. The buzz-cut man and Number 9 both light up, heaping on the praise, saying the boss must have a plan worked out already. But Chain just scratches his head and stares at them blankly, asking them what they think he should do. On the other side of things, in Psycho's room, he reaches for his medication. His grip slips slightly. The bottle clatters to the floor and rolls to Song Yuna's feet. Song Yuna bends down and picks it up. Psycho looks up at her, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. Song Yuna says calmly that she just arrived. She glances up at the clock and points out that it's already noon. Psycho takes the bottle back, tips out the pills and swallows them without ceremony. Song Yuna crouches beside the medical kit and searches through it for some patches. Her eyes land on the scars covering his body. Something soft crosses her face. Song Yuna tends to him carefully as she speaks, saying these medications have probably long since stopped doing much for him. She suggests gently that it's not too late to turn back. Has he thought about fully retiring and stepping away from all of this? Psycho turns sharply. He presses her against the wall, hand beside her head, and says firmly that it's not time yet. Song Yuna is so startled she nearly forgets there's a lollipop in her mouth. She takes a moment to compose herself, then quietly agrees, something uncertain flickering across her face. She slowly sits back up and goes back to tidying the medical kit. Song Yuna adds that she's quietly increased the dosage in his medication. It's only a stopgap measure. She says plainly that Psycho's baseline endurance was never that high, and years of constant fighting without rest have pushed his body far past its limits. Psycho shrugs it off without concern, saying he's just curious to see how this war ends. Song Yuna corrects him immediately. The war ended long ago. He shouldn't still be holding on to it. Psycho pushes back with sudden intensity, insisting the war never stopped, not for a single second. He presses himself against the window and looks out into the distance. He tells Song Yuna that a new player has just stepped onto the stage. Down below Branch 17's building, 3 people stand: Sharpshooter, Demon Blade, and Rockfist. Rockfist rolls his shoulders and cracks his neck, frowning with displeasure at the fact that after being away this long, nobody bothered to come out and greet them. Sharpshooter fills them in. Most of the branch's people have been deployed on assignments. Gray Shadow, Lightning, and Mad Dog are all dead. The situation is not good. Demon Blade wraps a hand around the hilt at his waist, his expression darkening with what sounds almost like grief. He says he never expected Mad Dog to be killed, and that he always looked up to the senior hero. Rockfist is quick to agree, saying someone as capable as Mad Dog is becoming harder and harder to find. While they're still talking, the branch director's voice cuts through. He calls all 3 of them upstairs to the office for a meeting. Meanwhile, down in Branch 17's underground parking garage, Number 9 is scratching his head in genuine confusion. He can't understand how a branch of the famous Hero League has not a single guard in sight. It feels almost negligent, but he lets it go quickly. If anything, an empty garage makes what he's here to do a lot easier. He's only here to deliver the package after all. Upstairs in the office, the branch director stares at his phone, visibly irritated. He's unhappy that only 3 people showed up, not even half the manpower he needs to handle a crisis. Sharpshooter rolls his eyes and asks how many the director thought would come. They're all busy people. Everyone squeezed this in. A full turnout was never happening. Rockfist backs him up. Sharpshooter's got it right. Branch 17's jurisdiction is small by design. Standard practice is for people to be sent out on loan to other branches. He pauses, rubbing his hands together with barely concealed excitement, saying a crisis this big is actually kind of thrilling. Sharpshooter can't help rolling his eyes again, saying there's nothing remotely thrilling about this, it's just a headache. Rockfist's eyes light up with the look of someone who lives for a fight as he brings up the fact that Angie is a legend from the old war. The thought of taking down someone that's significant gets his blood going. Sharpshooter considers it for a moment, deciding it could be a decent opportunity to rack up some serious achievements. Worth it. Demon Blade's brow stays tightly furrowed as he solemnly reminds the group not to underestimate Angie for a second. Rockfist slaps him on the shoulder with a laugh, calling him a coward, saying Angie is just a relic past his prime. He turns to the director, pressing him to share what he knows. Someone who actually fought in the war should be able to confirm there's nothing to be scared of. The director gives Rockfist a look and tells him bluntly to stop being reckless and foolish. Rockfist's face falls, but with the director right there, he can't say a word back. He swallows it and goes quiet. The director turns to Song Yuna and asks where Psycho is. Song Yuna explains that Psycho's injuries from last time were severe. His body hasn't recovered. He won't be fighting today. Sharpshooter raises an eyebrow with a mocking edge. Mad Dog is dead, but Psycho gets to walk away clean. That kind of person, he says, doesn't deserve to call himself a hero. Song Yuna's expression turns cold, the air around her dropping in temperature as she warns Sharpshooter quietly to watch his mouth, and makes it clear that Psycho has far more right to that title than he does. Sharpshooter's face goes hard. His presence turns sharp. He raises his bow and aims it at Song Yuna in an instant. The tension between them pulls taut, neither backing down, one wrong move away from breaking out. It's at that moment the entire building begins to shake violently. Sharpshooter stands frozen, confused. He knows the only people left in the building are combat personnel. This can't be from a fight. Explosions start going off through the building one after another, fire and smoke beginning to spread. The director's voice stays calm and level. He says this is all expected. What had to come has come. His expression stays even as he signals everyone to stay focused, and he rises to meet what's coming. He declares to the room that today, Branch 17 is settling its debts with Angie and the Anonyms. For good. In another building at this moment, the blue-haired assistant is holding a menu, frowning at the prices. She quietly decides it's too expensive. Better to hold off and eat at home. On the stage nearby, a performance is underway. Victoria, in an elegant gown, walks slowly to the piano. She settles into the seat without rush and begins to play alongside the pianist. At first, the melody is beautiful, warm and flowing, filling the room. But before long, Victoria loses control of her touch. The pressure in her fingertips surges without warning. The gentle melody warps out of shape entirely. The pianist beside her is pulled off rhythm by the sudden shift. Nerves take over, and he stumbles through several wrong notes in a row. The blue-haired assistant listens to the music going sideways and watches Victoria's expression carefully. She doesn't know much about music, but she knows the hero she works for well enough. She can say with confidence that this performance has had a violent undercurrent to it the whole time. Getting through it at all is already something. Victoria finishes the performance. She walks slowly to the seat across from the blue-haired assistant. The assistant immediately rises, bows respectfully, and says she had no idea Victoria played piano. Victoria thanks her for always keeping her company, then picks up the menu and orders 2 steaks. She twirls a fork idly between her fingers, saying piano is just her way of practicing control over her strength. After all, if she forgets herself even slightly, things break. Learning to live a normal life means keeping that power reined in at every moment. Shortly after, the server brings both steaks to the table. Victoria cuts into hers and gestures for the assistant to eat. The assistant thanks her and begins eating in small, composed bites, her posture as proper as ever. Then Victoria suddenly frowns, glancing at her phone, saying the branch director isn't picking up. She laughs softly and theorizes that a branch director going silent means something's happened, and she's certain he won't report it to League headquarters or another branch. The director, she says, lives and breathes for his position. Every thought he has is about keeping his post and moving up against the anonyms. That kind of thinking is a liability. Victoria recalls the moment she crossed paths with me. She saw me use Angie's ability, which leads her to conclude I must be one of the anonyms. She stretches languidly, her voice breezy, hoping that if something big breaks out, it happens before her vacation ends. The blue-haired assistant suddenly stops moving. She points out the window, voice urgent, saying that something big has already broken out. Victoria follows her gaze. Through the window, Branch 17's building is engulfed in raging fire, thick columns of black smoke rolling upward into the sky. Victoria rests her chin on her hand, her expression playful and unhurried, saying it feels like the universe really does want her to enjoy this holiday. The scene cuts. I stare at the inferno, silently cursing Chain for playing us. I turn to Angie and ask what the plan is from here. Angie's mouth curves into a sharp, dangerous smile as his gaze cuts through the fire like a blade. His voice carries the weight of something unstoppable. He says it's time for our grand entrance, and we're going to erase Branch 17 from the League's map entirely. Angie slowly raises his hand and activates his ability. Black energy churns and coils in his palm, condensing into a powerful energy sphere. Then his arm drives forward, hurling the sphere directly at Branch 17's building. The energy sphere cuts through the air and swallows the entire structure in an instant. Flames wrapped in black energy spread without restraint, their destructive force multiplying exponentially. The scale of it is terrifying. Rockfist stares at the wave of energy surging toward them through the window, face blank with shock, saying the enemy is going all out. They're trying to level the whole building. Sharpshooter shoves Rockfist away from the window impatiently. She swings her fist and shatters the glass. She draws her bow immediately. A sharpened arrow aims squarely at us outside. The arrow tears through the air at blinding speed. I rip the sword from its sheath and swing to deflect. A sharp ring of metal on metal, and the arrow is stopped cold. I glance down at the arrow on the ground, and something cold shoots through me. This arrow was formed entirely from condensed aesta. Sharpshooter's eyes land on me, and she lets out a contemptuous snort, her expression dripping with disdain. The branch director's voice drops low as he issues combat orders. The priority is capturing Angie. Everyone else can be dealt with freely. Sharpshooter, Demon Blade, and Rockfist acknowledge the order in unison. Angie's gaze locks on Sharpshooter. He turns and orders John to bring her down. John responds instantly and moves forward. He springs into motion like a leopard breaking into a sprint. He runs up the wall, scaling it with fluid ease, climbing fast toward the floor where Sharpshooter is positioned. The three of them see what's coming and leap from the window immediately. Rockfist charges ahead and activates his ability. Both arms swell and harden into solid stone in an instant. He winds up and throws a devastating punch at John as he closes in. The force is extraordinary. John's body is completely shattered by the blow. But just when everyone assumes it's over, the scattered fragments begin pulling back together at speed. John's body reassembles in an instant, completely unharmed. John gets back on his feet and closes on Rockfist without hesitation. He winds up and lands a fierce, heavy strike directly on Rockfist's body. Rockfist has no time to react. He's sent flying and slams into a wall far behind him. Demon Blade takes the opening, slipping around behind John while he's distracted, setting up for a sneak attack. He grips his long sword tight, focuses his power, and drives a downward slash at John's back. The blade is a split second from landing when Rachel appears out of nowhere. She brings her cleaver around and intercepts the blow cleanly. I seize the fleeting gap and drive my sword at Demon Blade's vital points. Demon Blade reacts with sharp reflexes. Twisting away from the blade, my sword buries itself into the wall beside him. I carry the momentum forward and sweep my sword to shed the force. But Demon Blade suddenly reaches out and grabs my collar. He hauls me off the ground in one motion, then drives his foot hard into my lower abdomen, sending me flying out of control. In the split second my body hangs in the air, Sharpshooter's arrow comes screaming back. Rachel activates her ability in time, vines surging rapidly in my direction. I use them as a platform, pushing off and leaping clear, just barely avoiding a lethal hit. I didn't expect her plant ability to work as support like that. I owe her that one. The battlefield is clarified now. It's me and Rachel against Demon Blade and Sharpshooter. Rachel glances at me, asking with a light tone which one I want to take on. I signal that I'll deal with Demon Blade. Then I pull out a gold coin and toss it into the air. In the window while the coin spins, I activate the invisibility ability and vanish completely. Demon Blade grips his sword tight, scanning his surroundings carefully, searching for any sign of me. He suddenly senses something behind him, frowning in confusion about when wire had wound around him. I yank the wire I had set in the dark with a sharp pull, sending Demon Blade flying hard. Before he lands, I reappear and close in fast with my sword. Demon Blade sweeps his blade to sever the wire, then locks into close combat with me. Our exchange only lasts a few moves, before my longsword is corroded and snapped by his ability. I don't hesitate. I pull the short sword from my sleeve in the same motion and keep driving at him. Demon Blade lets out a cold laugh, contempt bleeding into every word. He states plainly that his ability corrodes metal, and ordinary weapons can't touch him. Sure enough, the next second, the short sword in my hand is eaten apart and breaks as well. If ordinary weapons are useless, then I'll use something that isn't. The ability I briefly took from Victoria earlier, now is exactly the right time for it. I activate Sweet Dreams. Brilliant light blades rapidly take shape in my palm. The light blades carry a concentrated special energy driving at Demon Blade with slicing force on a howling wind. I run the calculation in my head. My hidden cards fall into roughly 2 types: abilities I can use permanently, and abilities I've only borrowed temporarily. A permanent ability is one I gain after personally finishing off its original owner. As long as my AST holds out, I can use it without restriction. But a borrowed ability works differently. It can be triggered at any time, but the moment it activates, a time limit begins. And before the original owner is dealt with, each use gives only one chance, with a full-body ice-cold backlash as the clock runs out. For me, a fight is like a card game. Every card in my hand has to be played at exactly the right moment. A single wasted move could lose me everything. I pull my focus back and lock onto the fight in front of me. The light blade assault becomes more relentless by the second. The 2 blades collide with a thunderous impact, throwing off a shower of sharp sparks. This time, the blade formed from light hits without any resistance, completely unaffected by his corrosion ability. Demon Blade senses something unnatural about the light blade, and his expression grows more serious. His defense tightens. I bear down with more force, pressing the blade lower, gravity adding to the pressure bearing down on Demon Blade. He grinds his teeth and holds firm, both hands locked on his sword hilt as he pushes back against me, taking advantage of his full focus on the frontal clash. I shift my movement secretly, grabbing his sword hilt to pin his hands, then swing my blade in a fast slash at his side. Demon Blade twists immediately and uses his sword to deflect, neutralizing the sneak attack. He then uses the redirect to swing his longsword back in a fierce counter, steadily driving me back step by step. I reset my stance quickly and charge at Demon Blade again with my sword, not letting the pressure drop, but he's already ready. He sidesteps the blade and catches my arm in the same motion. He turns the force against me in a clean over-the-shoulder throw, slamming me hard into the ground. Then he swings his sword straight at my face. I roll hard to the side to dodge. My hand closes on a fistful of dust. I throw it directly at his face. Demon Blade scrambles to raise his sword in front of his eyes, his visibility cut for a moment. I use the gap to circle fast around behind him, light blade ready to deliver the finishing blow. But Demon Blade snaps around suddenly, long sword raised, eyes full of sharp focus. He recognizes that the ability comes from Victoria, and immediately drops into a guarded stance. We collide again, locked in close combat. The clash of blades grows faster and more frequent. On one exchange, our weapons lock against each other and we push back hard. The next second, the force sends us both flying in opposite directions, each stepping back to absorb it. I catch myself with one hand on the ground and stabilize fast. He slides back several steps before regaining his footing. Demon Blade keeps his eyes on me, his expression more serious than before. He isn't curious about how I came to hold Victoria's ability. What puzzles him is whose school of swordsmanship my technique comes from. I curve my mouth slightly and tell him to figure it out himself. I add a little provocation, saying I'm hoping to pick up a move or two from him today. At the same time, on the other side, that fight has already begun. The branch director looks at Angie standing before him. The faces of fallen heroes flash through his mind in rapid succession. Rage surges to the surface and his presence turns violent. He taunts Angie, calling him nothing more than a failure who fled with his tail between his legs all those years ago. And now he has the nerve to come strutting back onto League territory, apparently with no regard for his own life. At those words, Angie's body suddenly gives a slight strange tremor. The branch director steps forward and presses deliberately. He waves Angie on, declaring he'll finish him with his own hands today. But the tremor isn't what the director thinks. Angie has simply arrived here, and found himself pulled unwillingly into memories of the past. That woman, who couldn't stand his constantly cold expression, had insisted on making him become Angie. That time, she didn't just destroy his face, she planted the seed of hatred deep in his heart. Angie tells himself that wiping out Branch 17 is only the beginning of his revenge. He will find that woman and make her pay. The moment the thought settles, a massive surge of energy erupts from Angie's body. Dark vortexes coalescing rapidly in the air around him. I feel it immediately, a formless, bone-deep dread. When I turn to look, the sight stops me cold. Every person fighting on the battlefield pauses involuntarily. The collective reaction is the same. The intensity of this Aesta wave is far beyond anything they imagined. Everyone is thinking the same thing. Is this Angie's real power? Angie slowly raises both hands and drives his ability forward. A floating stairway of light materializes in thin air. He steps onto it and begins to ascend, making his way directly toward the branch director's office. The moment he arrives, the stairway dissolves into nothing, but the instant his foot touches the floor of the office, the scene around him shifts violently. A blanket of fog rolls in from all sides, wrapping around him completely. The branch director's voice filters through the mist, thick with the confidence of someone who believes victory is already decided. He admits he laid the trap from the start, mocking Angie for walking straight into a pit he could see coming. Too arrogant for his own good. The director brings up the past, Angie at the peak of his power, the villain forces at their strongest, and even then it wasn't enough. To come back now and fantasize about toppling the league is laughable overreach. The director makes his threat plainly. Angie dies here, today, by his hand. Angie laughs with open contempt. The director's threat doesn't register as a concern. He launches his counter immediately. A focused energy strike hits the director's shape in the fog dead center, but a closer look reveals that what was struck is just a white whale copy the director conjured with his ability. The next second, dozens of white whales materialize around Angie, tearing into his Iesta energy from every direction. Thousands upon thousands of white whales weave through the air all around him. Yet Angie's expression stays completely unmoved. The director explains that the white whales convert what they consume into his own energy. He sneers freely at Angie's ability type, declaring there's no possible escape. Before the words fade, the director clasps both hands and pushes his ability to full output. The white whales that were feeding on Angie's energy reverse course in a flash and come charging at him from all sides. Angie suddenly lets out a full laugh, his scorn completely unmasked. He says 4 words, just a type match. The director looks again. Every white whale he summoned has been wiped out in an instant. Angie's voice turns cold as he lays out the reality. The gap in their strength makes type advantages completely meaningless. He tells the director plainly, leading him here is the single biggest miscalculation of his life. As he speaks, the energy around Angie detonates outward, black energy surging out in a wave, consuming every trace of fog, and then it blots out all the light in the space entirely, trapping the director in complete darkness. At almost the same moment on the ground below, the fight reaches its most intense point. John and Rockfist trade blows in a fierce exchange. John drives a heavy punch clean into Rockfist. Rockfist snarls and shoves his power back, adding more force with each blow. Stone fists hammering at John in rapid succession, they pull and push in a grinding standoff, neither able to put the other down for good. On the other side, Rachel is slashing and pressing with her cleaver, while simultaneously running her plant ability. Vines coil along the blade's path, reaching toward Sharpshooter, trying to lock her down, but every time Sharpshooter cuts through them cleanly. She keeps her distance, maintaining the advantage of range without fail. Behind her cover, Rachel's frustration mounts. Sharpshooter is a nightmare to deal with. The arrows come in a relentless flood, closing the distance is impossible, and every single one hits with brutal force. What makes it worse is that she can't copy my approach in this situation, so she can't find any way to break through. Rachel peeks out with a purposely helpless look in her voice, fishing for a weak spot. Sharpshooter slowly touches up her nails, her expression spoiled and quietly threatening, completely unbothered. Rachel sticks out her tongue and teases that Sharpshooter's aim must be slipping. Not a single arrow has landed yet. She even takes a jab at whether she was ever actually good at archery, deliberately trying to provoke. That hits a nerve. The smile drops off Sharpshooter's face instantly. Her expression turns cold and dangerous as she says Rachel is going to regret that. Burning with fury, she raises her bow, and an arrow flies out with a sharp crack. Rachel looks up to track it, and her stomach drops. The arrow's path has just shifted in a way it shouldn't have. There's no time to dodge. She can only throw her cleaver up as a reflex block. Sharpshooter watches her panic, a satisfied smile curling her lips. The ability has activated. Her ability is simple. The 6th shot always hits. Rachel grits her teeth and pulls the arrow out of her calf. She crushes the shaft through the pain. She glances toward me in Demon Blade's fight, and can't help cursing herself silently. She should have picked Demon Blade from the start. Now she's stuck, and switching opponents isn't an option anymore. Sharpshooter doesn't let her breathe. She draws again, and arrows come one after another. Rachel pushes through her wounds, moving nimbly, dodging and jumping in a succession of near misses. She knows she can't keep stalling. That's a losing approach. The only way she turns this around is by closing the distance. Sharpshooter suddenly pulls a switch from her pocket and presses it without hesitation. Rachel feels something wrong underfoot. She looks down, a landmine. Before she can do anything, it explodes. The blast launches her and drops her hard. As she pushes herself upright, it clicks into place. While she'd been sheltering behind the rocks, Sharpshooter had already laid the mines around her quietly. The arrows that went wide earlier were never misses. They were meant to herd her step by step into the trap. Her opponent runs deep plays. This is a serious, dangerous fighter, and she can't evade the barrage of arrows indefinitely regardless. Her situation is getting worse. Sharpshooter tilts her head at the figure on the ground, disdain written all over her face. She lifts her chin with a light smirk and tells Rachel to surrender now and she'll leave her in one piece. Rachel slowly stands, fighting through the pain, and launches another attack. She sends vines crackling with energy whipping toward Sharpshooter at full speed. Sharpshooter clicks her tongue, flips away with a nimble spin, dodging the vines with ease. Rachel's mouth curves into a faint smile as she works through her options. Sharpshooter is incredibly fast, and trying to close the gap while arrows are flying is nearly impossible. But she isn't going to stay on the back foot forever. She thinks through Sharpshooter's ability carefully. The sixth shot always hits, but it can't target a specific part of the body. If it could, the first shot would have gone straight for her head. Once she works that out, there's only one way to break the deadlock. Bet on it. Rachel makes up her mind. Before her wounds get worse, she has to get into position and take the hit. Stake everything on one charge. Sharpshooter's arrows keep coming in a relentless stream. Rachel weaves and dodges fluidly, while counting each hit in her head. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. On the sixth, Rachel lets a flicker of intent show in her eyes. She immediately pushes her ability to its limit. A massive burst of vines explodes outward, trying to drag Sharpshooter into her ability's realm. But the restraint she expected never comes. The vines find nothing. Sharpshooter smiles wickedly, saying what a shame. The sixth arrow that just hit her wasn't the ability at all. It was an ordinary arrow dressed up as bait. Sharpshooter draws one more time, the tip aimed with precision at her heart. This one is the real thing. The sixth Iesta arrow carrying the full weight of her ability. Rachel's heart lurches. She throws her vines forward on instinct. But the vines are just a beat too slow. The arrow is already in the air. It drives into Rachel's chest with pinpoint accuracy, the force punching clean through her body. Sharpshooter sidesteps smoothly after releasing, cleanly avoiding the dying burst of vines. Rachel's body triggers in reflex. Rachel staggers violently, her chest screaming with pain, and finally crumples to the ground. A wave of heavy dizziness crashes over her entire body. Her consciousness begins to slip, her vision darkening at the edges. She refuses to give up. There's too much left she hasn't done. She cannot die here. As her awareness starts to scatter, Rachel's thoughts drift beyond her control, back to a distant past. Her hometown was once a small city filled with cold indifference and cruelty. On every street corner and in every alley, abandoned children were a common sight. Newborns who never got to arrive in love. Teenagers who had no choice but to steal just to eat. They faced the brutal laws of that world from their very first years. In that city, there was no place for them. In an era of frequent civil war, the people of that small city had naturally sharpened themselves hard just to survive the ever-present blades. But some of the hot-blooded wanderers, threw their weight around picking fights and causing trouble wherever they went. They all ended the same way, dead and left to rot in the open, unburied and unmourned. Cold, pitiless sunlight swept briefly over that barren, frost-hardened ground. A worn-down cart rolled slowly into view, its wheels grinding against the frozen earth. Behind the cart, a thin figure was dragged along, dressed in rags, covered in wounds. That figure being dragged was Rachel, in her youth, and all of this traced back to a single flower. When she was small, Rachel had stretched onto her toes trying to trim a branch in the garden. Her fingertip was just about to touch the delicate bud. When the stool beneath her shifted, she lost her balance and fell. Her mother came running from inside, catching her and checking her over frantically. Rachel held back the pain and shook her head, telling her she was fine. Her mother let out a breath of relief, gently tousled her hair, and told her to get inside. Her uncle would be coming soon. As evening settled in, darkness wrapped around the small city and a faint lamp lit up inside. Her uncle arrived as promised, pushing the door open and stepping in. Rachel lit up the moment she saw him, and ran straight into his arms. Her uncle laughed and ruffled her hair, warm and affectionate. Her mother smiled too and came over to greet him. She turned and brought out the meal she'd already prepared. Once her uncle sat down and took the bowl and chopsticks her mother handed him, his expression gradually grew heavy. Her mother asked how things had been lately. Her uncle sighed deeply, his voice low as he spoke. The city lord had been in a terrible mood recently. 5 people had been executed just in the past week. Her mother immediately tapped the table gently, warning him to watch what he said. She shot a look at her uncle, reminding him silently that a child was right there and this wasn't the kind of thing to talk about. Her uncle blinked and caught himself. He quickly pushed the grave look off his face and replaced it with an apologetic one. He turned to Rachel and asked gently about her day. Rachel leaned into him and said quietly that she'd accidentally snipped a flower earlier, but she didn't know what kind it was. Her mother laughed and ruffled her hair, saying that question was better aimed at her since she was the one with the green thumb, and asked what the flower looked like. Rachel tilted her head and thought carefully. She said the petals were pure white, and the stem was covered in tiny thorn-like things. Her mother considered it and guessed it might be a wild rose. Rachel shook her head right away, saying the whole flower was white, not a hint of another color anywhere. Her mother frowned, genuinely puzzled. She said she knew every flower in that garden, and there shouldn't be anything she didn't recognize. The next second, Rachel activated her ability. Drawing on the image of that flower in her memory, she let a ghostly recreation of it take shape in the air. Her mother and uncle both went still the moment they saw her use her ability. Their faces drained. The warm, gentle atmosphere of a moment ago vanished entirely. The air inside felt heavy and suffocating. Her mother snapped toward her uncle, voice tight, asking whether he was planning to take Rachel to her father. The emotion cracked through, and she raised her voice. She told him sharply that sending Rachel there was the same as sending her to die. Her uncle sighed again, his voice heavy with helplessness, saying there was no other option. He said that now that Rachel had awakened her ability, the city lord finding out was only a matter of time, and when that happened, the consequences would be far worse. Rachel immediately reached out and tugged at her mother's skirt, quietly asking them not to argue. Her mother bit down on her anger and said nothing. She turned and pried open a suitcase that hadn't been touched in years. She started packing clothes with quick hands. She'd made her decision. She was getting Rachel out. Her uncle stepped forward to stop her, urging her not to be reckless. The city forbade residents from leaving. There was no way out. Her mother looked up and met his eyes, firm, unyielding. She said she didn't care about any of their rules, and told him plainly, if he wasn't going to help, then he could leave. Rachel stood and watched the two of them argue, completely lost, not understanding at all why the adults had suddenly become so agitated. Her uncle's fist tightened. He cursed under his breath through clenched teeth, and finally caved, telling them to meet him at the outskirts of the village in 3 hours. Her mother went still for a moment, then called out to him, her voice cracking. Her eyes were full of gratitude. Her uncle turned to go, muttering awkwardly that he must be out of his mind for agreeing. He had supplies to get. Her mother went after him and wrapped her arms around him, voice breaking as she thanked him. He turned his face away stiffly and patted her back, telling her to let go already. Rachel didn't understand what had just happened, but watching the two of them reconcile, a bright smile spread across her face. The night deepened. Fine snow began to fall. Her mother held her hand and stood quietly at the edge of the village waiting, but the agreed time came and went, and her uncle never appeared. They finally found him tucked in a corner, his body, already picked apart by crows beyond recognition. Then a group of people in black, carrying themselves with a sharp, dangerous calm, closed in around them. The moment her mother made out their uniforms, the color left her face entirely. These were the city lord's personal guard, tasked with hunting down anyone deemed a threat, and known for their merciless methods. Watching the guard captain's measured steps closing the distance, her mother gripped Rachel's small hand and backed away one step at a time. But they'd barely moved before the guards had them completely surrounded. There was nowhere to run. Several guards moved in and restrained them both. Her mother fought and struggled, screaming Rachel's name over and over. The guard captain looked on with cold contempt, muttering about people who never learn not to break the rules. So much trouble. Her mother screamed for them to let her daughter go, and in her desperation she said Rachel was the city lord's daughter. The guard captain stopped. Then he laughed, low and mocking. He wasn't buying it. He crouched and looked her mother in the face, and said the city lord had more than just Rachel as an illegitimate child. He didn't know the exact count, but it was well over 100. It wasn't a remarkable claim. He stood back up and added that she had no proof of any of it anyway. Besides, the city lord kept his personal and official lives completely separate. Even if Rachel really were his daughter, she'd receive no special treatment. Her mother knew that this small city was one of the rare places that fell outside the Hero League's control, and because of that, it ran under its own brutal laws. No one who lived here ever left. They were trapped on this backward strip of land for their entire lives. But she could not stand by and let her daughter die. Her mother's eyes blazed red as she begged through clenched teeth for them to spare Rachel. The guard captain's voice stayed flat and brutal. The rules applied to everyone. Adults were executed. Children were punished. Then the guard captain gave the order. Bind Rachel to the cart. Parade her through the city. A full circuit of the city took 3 days and 3 nights. Most children couldn't last a single day. They would simply die in silence, consumed by despair. Rachel was bound tightly to the cart, and yet a faint smile drifted across her face. It had nothing to do with happiness. She had simply hit the bottom of despair, and with nothing else left, she could only smile. The quiet, ordinary warmth of the life she'd had shattered into nothing in that moment. Her uncle dead, her mother executed. She didn't even have the strength to resist. It felt like any second now she'd close her eyes quietly in the white snow and disappear from the world as if she'd never been in it at all. Just as Rachel's awareness began to blur, the moving cart came to a sudden stop. A familiar figure walked slowly through the blinding snowstorm, coming into focus with each step. The guard captain immediately drew his sword and leveled it at the newcomer, every nerve on edge. The newcomer was Angie. He paid the blade pointed at him no attention at all. The next second, he activated his ability and attacked without preamble. Black energy swept through the scene in an instant. Rachel was thrown to the ground by the shockwave. She watched as Angie moved with cold precision, every strike lethal, dropping every member of the guard with finality. Even the guard captain had no room to fight back. He hit the ground in an instant. Angie stood with his signature sharp, unrestrained smile, posture straight, unhurried. In the middle of the raging snowstorm, there was something almost striking about him. Angie walked forward, raised his blade, and cut through the ropes binding Rachel cleanly. He didn't say a word through any of it. No questions asked. He didn't ask why she'd been trying to leave the city. He didn't ask why she wore the expression of someone with nothing left to live for. It was Rachel who had all the questions, looking at the man in front of her. She wanted to know why he was here. Even more, she wanted to know who he really was. Before she could speak, Angie spoke first. He said he'd launched 2 attacks against the Hero League and failed both times. He was now quietly building toward a third, determined this time to see his revenge through. As he said it, his eyes were full of fire and certainty, a man who was genuinely alive in what he was doing. Watching that, Rachel, who had sunk completely into despair, felt something she hadn't expected: envy. She thought to herself that she wished she had a goal like that, something clear, something worth fighting for with everything she had. And in that thought, Rachel saw the truth about herself. She had no attachment to life at all. She had even given up on revenge without really fighting for it. Was it because the enemy was too strong? Honestly, that was just an excuse she was making for herself. Grief, fear, guilt, and the rage she'd buried and compressed for so long, all of it surged together and collided in the depths of her heart. And in doing so, It fully unlocked and completed her plant ability in a way nothing else had. The moment she left her hometown behind, Rachel made herself a quiet, unshakable promise she would come back. When she did, she would take the head of the man who had stolen everything from her, her father, the city lord. She would hang it from the highest point of the castle as an offering to her uncle and her mother wherever they were. The memory ends. Rachel's awareness pulls back slowly to the present and the battle. Sharpshooter looks down at her, her voice carrying a note of reluctant acknowledgement alongside total indifference, saying her will is admirable, but it's time for this to end. Sharpshooter draws one more time, the arrow trained on Rachel, intending to give her a clean finish. Rachel pushes herself up slightly, her expression full of stubborn refusal to go down, calm and unyielding. She says she has no intention of dying here. Even begging Sharpshooter for her life doesn't feel like a price she cares about, because surviving matters more than pride. Rachel calls John's name at full volume. John reads it immediately. He pushes Rockfist back in the same motion and ends up right beside Rachel. Sharpshooter catches the movement and snaps her head up, already too late to stop it. Rachel has activated her plant ability. Thick vines lock around Rockfist in an instant. The next second, Rachel and the restrained Rockfist disappear from where they stood. Rockfist is pulled by the vines into the isolated realm Rachel created with her ability. The space inside is a dense enclosed forest, completely sealed from the outside world. Rachel's figure appears before him. She lets out a quiet sigh. She can't believe she let Sharpshooter beat her this badly. Her mood is terrible right now, and she has no patience to drag this out. She's ending it fast. Rockfist stares at her, confused. His eyes lock on her and stay there, because Rachel doesn't have a mark on her, not a scratch, not a trace of any wound. Rockfist's mind reels. Her injuries, all of them, are simply gone. She had been too badly hurt to move just a moment ago. He looks again and again, confirming it isn't an illusion. Only then does it sink in. He's been pulled into an isolated space, and this is Rachel's ability domain. Before he can think further, Rachel raises her cleaver, her entire body wrapped in absolute killing intent, and brings it down savagely toward his back. Rachel's blade comes down, wrapped in a sharp gust of wind. Rockfist scrambles to raise his arm and block, then immediately throws himself back, barely managing to put safe distance between them. A dull ache pulses through his arm as he fixes his eyes on Rachel. He sees that not only have her wounds healed completely, her power has grown alongside them. Before he can process it, Rachel leaps and brings her cleaver down again with the same ferocious force. Rockfist throws his arm up to block once more. The strange toothed blade bites into him hard and true. He grinds his teeth against the pain and holds firm, genuinely confused about why she's targeting him specifically. He wonders silently whether he's just the easiest one to beat in her eyes. Rockfist has to admit Rachel's ability is formidable, and the realm she creates is a serious problem, but he has absolute faith in his own body. His hardness exceeds ordinary alloy by a wide margin, so if he can just outlast her until her energy gives out, he'll grind her to dust. Then, without warning, Rachel suddenly pulls back her attack. She tosses her cleaver onto the ground, where it lands with a dull thud. She says softly that it's already over. Then she brings up a particular flower from her hometown. Beautiful, resilient, with extraordinary vitality. The only annoying thing about it is that if you're not careful, it takes over the entire garden. She asks Rockfist casually whether he knows the flower she means. Without waiting for his answer, she supplies it herself. It's a plant called the purple thornbriar. It tends to grow between rock crevices, and when it blooms it bursts into vivid purple flowers. Rachel raises her hand and points at Rockfist's stone-hard fist, saying it grows the same way he does. Rockfist hasn't figured out the connection yet when a bolt of searing pain tears through his body. Then a shattering, explosive agony, like every bone in his body is vibrating apart. Rockfist doubles over, coughing violently, crimson blood spattering across the ground. Rachel watches him suffering. She says flatly that she told him from the start she wanted this finished quickly. Rockfist is completely rattled. Fighting is the last thing on his mind. He turns and bolts. He's cursing himself internally, realizing he must have been caught the moment the blade hit him. He can't help thinking ruefully that Sharpshooter was at least smart enough to stay away from that strange weapon. He was just too careless, charging straight in like a fool. Rockfist runs and coughs at the same time, his wounds throwing off his stride. Then he hears Rachel's cheerful voice calling out to him from behind. Rockfist snaps his head around and swings his fist without thinking, aiming at where the voice came from. His fist closes on nothing. He realizes the thing he just swung at is nothing more than an ordinary tree figure. He stares at it, still trying to make sense of things, when the tree figure on the ground slowly opens its mouth. In a hoarse, rasping voice, it begs him to kill it, and watches him with two unsettling eyes that don't look away. Rockfist stares at the tree figure in front of him, and feels a chill shoot from his feet straight to the top of his head. He screams in terror and runs wildly. He barely makes it a few steps before vines shoot up from nowhere and wrap around him, completely immobilized. Rachel walks up to him slowly and asks if he's seen enough. Rockfist thrashes and snarls, his face twisted, demanding to know what she's trying to do. Rachel reassures him gently not to worry. Only her targets for revenge ever end up as part of her display. No sooner does she say it than green shoots begin to sprout from the corners of his mouth, and countless flowers and vines come pouring out of his nose and mouth in a rush. Rachel has chosen sunflowers as the main color. In the blink of an eye, Rockfist is wrapped up in a cocoon of blooms. Rachel looks at the flower cocoon and murmurs quietly to herself, deciding she at least did her part in this battle. She rubs her aching knee, well aware that stepping back into reality is going to hurt badly, so she decides to rest here in the realm for a little while first. Meanwhile, In the battlefield outside the realm, I'm still locked in a fight with Demon Blade. I keep my eyes fixed on him, quietly working out his nature. He and Mad Dog are the same type. Their ability carries no direct destructive force and can't be used offensively in a fight, no matter how efficiently they use it. When it finally comes down to landing a hit, it still relies entirely on their own physical power. It's a somewhat contradictory setup, yet they still became League heroes, which means even without their abilities, they were already strong enough on their own. A straight frontal assault is too slow and costly, but that doesn't mean there's no way through. I find a gap in his defense. I drive my sword straight at his vitals. Demon Blade's eyes sharpen. He raises his sword to deflect the blow immediately. I let my wrist turn with the rebound, using the reactive force to spin my body and strip the sword from his grip. Demon Blade watches his own sword get taken. He never saw that kind of risky technical disarm coming. I curve my mouth, grip the stolen sword, and launch a sharp new offensive. Demon Blade draws a straight blade. He's confident that tricks like this aren't going to win me anything. He strikes back with clear contempt on his face, calling my methods cheap. I think personally that's a kind of compliment for someone on the wrong side of the law. My sword work pushes harder, then a memory suddenly surfaces, the exchange with Psycho. In that memory, Psycho looked at me with a heavy expression and talked about how far the League had fallen, how it turned a blind eye to heroes abusing their power and did nothing, just let it happen. I met his eyes with cold suspicion at the time, wondering what he really wanted from telling me all this. Psycho continued, saying Angie was too extreme, determined to destroy the League by any means necessary, willing to sacrifice the Anonyms or his own life without hesitation. He went on to say that I was nothing like Angie. Even if we ended up working together out of necessity, we were fundamentally different people, not the same kind at all. I cut him off with a flat voice, telling him that was enough. I reminded him that Mad Dog was dead, and if he kept poking his nose where it didn't belong, I wouldn't be gentle about it. Psycho didn't flinch. He waved his hands and told me to calm down. He had something interesting to show me. He pulled out a card and held it out. He explained it was his identity access card. With it, even without knowing the individual heroes, I could navigate the League's entire database. He proposed a trade like what I had going with Angie. I glanced at the card and told him flatly that without a password it was just a useless piece of plastic. Psycho pushed it into my hand and insisted it was legitimate, and that this was the most efficient path forward, so there was no point taking the long road when a shortcut was right there. I held the card and said nothing for a moment. Then I told him I'd hear his plan before deciding. Psycho immediately perked up, the words coming faster, saying he knew we'd be running into 3 people when we hit branch 17. He walked me through them one by one, starting with Rockfist. Every mission left unnecessary casualties in his wake. He used his ability with no regard for anything around him, causing damage and deaths without restraint. Psycho said the pattern was the same as Lightning and Grey Shadow, both of whom I'd already dealt with. Taking him out wasn't a problem. Then he moved on to Sharpshooter. Psycho said she was hard to label as good or bad. She only cared about her own popularity. She had once been his student, though that bond didn't amount to much anymore. Finally, he brought up Demon Blade. He said Demon Blade had no business being in the League. His sense of justice was bone deep. He was the kind of person who worked hard and pushed himself, genuinely principled, which was rare. Psycho was asking me to spare Demon Blade, because this broken world still needed people like that. Even if one person couldn't change the big picture, more people like Demon Blade was still better. He added that maybe one day Demon Blade could be useful to me. No one could say. And as someone who had lived through a lot of it, Psycho offered one piece of advice. Even in revenge, keep your sense of right and wrong. Don't end up becoming the exact kind of trash hero you despise. The memory cuts out. Demon Blade's voice pulls me back, asking why I haven't killed him yet. I lower my sword and stand still. I tell him plainly that I made a deal with someone. Demon Blade guesses Psycho immediately, and can't help muttering that he always has to meddle. I look at him and pass along Psycho's words without embellishment, that Psycho doesn't think he belongs in the League, and if he's truly unhappy there, leaving is an option. Demon Blade steadies himself and looks back with unmistakable resolve. His reason for not leaving is simple. Compared to those who have already died as innocent casualties, there are still far more people out there who need the League's help. I raise an eyebrow and ask if he's accepting that even a corrupt law is still the law. Before he can answer, I look away. I inform him directly that the sword is mine from this point on. Meanwhile, high above, the branch director is fighting Angie, and with each exchange, the fear in him grows. The man is stronger than anything he anticipated. The director suddenly drives his ability forward. A massive white whale materializes in the air, its presence crushing. But Angie's attack comes in a burst of uncontrolled force, cutting straight through his buildup. The white whale dissolves under the assault without offering any resistance at all. The director tries to trigger his ability again and counter, but Angie's ability moves faster. He presses down relentlessly, leaving the director no room to build toward anything. Angie bares his teeth in a mocking smile, hinting that if the director lost an arm, would he still talk this big? The director's blood runs cold. Before he can react, a dark shape coils around his arm. The next second, blinding agony, and his arm is simply torn off. The severed arm plummets from the height and crashes below. The director drives his teeth together and holds back the scream. He pours every last trace of energy he has into one concentrated strike and hurls it at Angie. but Angie raises his hand almost casually and stops it without effort. Angie's contempt deepens as he says the director's title is just a title. His actual strength isn't worth anything, nowhere near enough to be called a rival. Angie walks toward the director on the ground, the black energy around him growing thicker with every step. Each step seals off any escape and crushes down like a physical weight. He points out that the director's energy is completely gone. He's already at his limit. The director stares at his arm that won't stop bleeding, and regret fills him to the brim. He tells himself that if he'd known it would come to this, he never should have chased status. He should have walked away long ago, instead of clinging to a meaningless title and borrowed power. He carried the name of hero, but never once actually served justice. Perhaps this is exactly what he deserves. All these years, he hadn't lived cleanly. Honestly, he wasn't much different from the villains outside. Even so, he knows Angie is dangerous, the most twisted person he has ever seen. If this is how it ends, he can accept that. For someone as corrupt as himself, maybe this is the most fitting way to go, but if he's dying, he's taking Angie down with him. The director burns the last remnant of his strength to unleash his ultimate technique. He screams that they're going down together. The ground ruptures and splits apart, cracks spreading outward. A white whale tears out of the earth, hundreds of times larger than anything before it. The whale rockets skyward with world-ending force, throwing the energy around it into chaos. The director staggers onto its back, eyes locked down on Angie with desperate, wide-open shock. A hit this powerful, and the man is completely untouched. He hasn't even swayed. Worse, he's floating in the air. It clicks then. Angie's ability bears some resemblance to Victoria's, except what Angie is standing on appears to be condensed dark matter. But with life and death on the line right now, there's no time to untangle the details. The director roars with the last of his voice, commanding the whale to launch a lethal strike at Angie. The massive whale opens its jaws wide, riding a violent current of force as it bears down on Angie. Angie lets his body drop downward. At the moment just before he touches the ground, he launches a ground-level attack. He uses the force to slide and hold his position, then looks up at the whale diving toward him. He says the director's final struggle was always going to amount to nothing. The air thickens with suffocating pressure. A moment later, the whale attacks again. It swallows Angie whole in a single lunge and rises into the sky. The director's life is draining away fast, and the whale's energy is fading with it. One thought, if he can hold on through this, Angie dies. Then, countless black hands suddenly push out from inside the whale's body, tearing at its mouth from within. Then one enormous hand drives out through the whale's jaws and locks around the top of its head. What Angie looks like in the next moment drains every last trace of color from the director's face. Despair floods in like a rising tide. He finally sees it clearly. He miscalculated completely. He should have called for reinforcements from other districts beforehand. Going it alone was a fatal error. What he sees in front of him, piled behind Angie, is a mountain of bodies. The sight hits like a physical blow. Angie raises his hand and fires a lethal energy strike directly at the director on the whale's back. The director's body loses all support and plunges straight down from the whale. As his consciousness fades, fragments of memory surface without his permission. The word justice circles through his mind again and again, unyielding, weighted with endless irony. In the memory, Psycho screams at him with grief-stricken fury, calling out what they call justice. The director grabs Psycho by the collar. He shouts back that this is wartime. There's no room for sentiment. He points at the bodies on the ground, voice raw, saying every one of them was a League youth soldier. He reminds Psycho that in war, everyone is a combatant. Even children can be lethal. As the words land, a child clutching a blade comes running at Psycho in tears, and drives the blade into him. Psycho's instinct is to shove the director away and protect the child. The director swings at the child without hesitation, muttering about loose ends. Then he moves to finish the child off, eliminate the threat for good. Psycho holds himself up through the wound and fires a shot, stopping the director in his tracks. The director looks at him, trembling with rage. He says flatly that this is not a fight between good and evil. It's evil against evil. They're just the slightly stronger version of bad. He adds that before words like hero and villain existed, the world always ran on strength alone. Psycho looks at him with full scorn and contempt, saying he's just making excuses to look away, that refusing to spare even a child this small means he abandoned whatever he ever called justice a long time ago. The director looks at Psycho with something obsessive and unhinged in his eyes, and says plainly that reaching the top of the power structure is worth anything it costs. Psycho crouches down and pulls the knife-wielding child tightly against him, telling the child that there are only two choices left: join the League or die. That memory also runs through Psycho's mind even now, and even though that child eventually turned on him too, he doesn't regret the choice he made. Back in the present, Psycho is sitting in the research room watching Song Yuna work and urging her to hurry. Song Yuna doesn't look up. She tells him to be patient, and reminds him to keep the time limit in mind. She tells Psycho that fighting at peak power can only be sustained for a few minutes. He must not rush in and burn through it recklessly. Psycho nods to show he understands. He takes the equipment Song Yuna hands him, and closes both hands tightly around his weapon. The security door on one side of the research room slides slowly open, and the battlefield outside comes fully into view. Psycho looks up at the sky. His pupils contract. His expression goes heavy. The massive white whale is lifeless, falling hard toward the ground, which means the director is already gone. Song Yuna walks over carrying a pair of specially made gloves. the same equipment once used by her junior colleague, Mad Dog. Psycho looks at the gloves, and his thoughts drift back. Mad Dog had once asked him why he never wore a hero's uniform. He'd also mentioned that he heard the battlesuit looked incredible on him. At the time, Psycho laughed it off, saying the uniform felt too heavy, but he knew better than anyone that was a lie. What pressed down on him was never the weight of cloth, it was the weight of the responsibility that suit carried. Now, the long habit of running away has exhausted him. He's decided to face it all. Song Yuna suddenly reaches out and grabs the edge of Psycho's cape, her face full of worry, urging him not to go. She says plainly that real justice no longer exists in the League, and there's no reason to sacrifice himself in a war that's already lost. Besides, she's already prepared a perfectly good cover story that would let him sit this fight out without anyone questioning it. Psycho takes one step forward, freeing himself from the cape, and thanks Song Yuna for caring and for thinking of everything. It's just that whatever sense of justice he once had is long gone, shattered beyond recovery. Everything he's doing now has nothing to do with justice. He walks out through the door, his back steady and final. He leaves behind one sentence. All he hopes is that putting on this uniform right now still makes him something close to a hero. On the other side of the battlefield, Sharpshooter looks up and sees the whale falling too. She quietly curses the branch director for all talk and no substance when it actually mattered. She pushes the shock back down and focuses. Worrying about other people can wait. Her own survival comes first. Then her mind goes to John, the one she's been fighting, and the thought is nothing but frustration. She can't get a read on what to do. He's overwhelmingly strong. She hasn't been able to figure out his ability at all. His agility is almost non-existent, but his physical output and endurance are beyond anything normal. After everything they've exchanged, Sharpshooter knows she can't win this fight. She's just been holding on. Then a flash of blue light catches her attention and she snaps her head toward it. She sees Rachel appear among the ruins, but no sign of Rockfist, who vanished alongside her. Sharpshooter's chest tightens as she mutters to herself, "There's no way Rockfist lost to that girl who looked half dead, right?" Still puzzling it over, she catches me walking toward her with Demon Blade's sword, looking completely composed. Her stomach drops. Even Demon Blade fell. Sharpshooter can see the situation has turned dangerous. She knows staying any longer means walking straight into a trap. She makes the call without hesitation, pull out. She quickly finds a flashbang on her body and throws it to the ground. Blinding light explodes outward and blankets everything. Sharpshooter uses the cover of the glare to slip away rapidly, breaking free from the battlefield. When she jumps behind a section of rubble to catch her breath, she finds Victor already waiting there. She barely has time to react. Victor already has the tranquilizer gun aimed at her. Victor apologizes calmly, saying even a supporting player has to step in sometimes. He pulls the trigger before she can respond. Clean and precise, aimed at the back of her neck. The tranquilizer dart lands perfectly, and Sharpshooter goes out instantly. Victor thinks it over to himself. The only reason the captain wanted her kept alive is because she still has value. Does that mean in Angie's eyes, everyone, enemy or ally, is just a tool for destroying the League? After putting Sharpshooter under, Victor looks up at Angie in the sky. He closes his fists slowly and murmurs that everything is finally coming to an end. By now the branch director is dead. Branch 17 is a complete ruin. Angie drifts slowly down from the air, unhurried, the energy around him gradually pulling back in. Then a bolt of blue light suddenly comes at him from out of nowhere, aimed straight at his face. Angie turns fast. He raises his arm in a reflex block, stopping the unexpected shot. When the smoke clears and he looks, the one who fired is Psycho. Psycho stands in battle armor, eyes sharp as a blade, locked on Angie without blinking. He says coldly that destroying someone else's territory and just walking away isn't how things work. Angie tilts his head, looking fully entertained, clearly not treating this fight as something to worry about. Psycho doesn't waste any more words. He moves in a flash and closes the gap, not giving Angie a breath of space. He gets in close and fires upward at Angie's jaw, the attack explosive in its speed. Angie shifts and dodges with fluid footwork. He blocks and immediately fires a counter. Psycho keeps pace, agile in every direction, then drives in again. Angie pushes his ability. Black energy surges outward. Psycho takes one look at the dark energy bearing down and adjusts immediately. He pushes his speed and physical output to a sharp peak, his movements becoming even more explosive. Working with that elevated speed, Psycho threads through the black energy's attack lines without getting caught. The two of them fall into a furious close-quarters fight, their movements flashing between the ruins. Angie fires another wave of black energy back at Psycho. John comes in from behind to close the trap, trying to catch Psycho between two attacks. Psycho reacts immediately. He picks up the attack from behind and turns to block. While clearing the attack, he fires several rounds at John in rapid succession. When those run dry, he pulls a second gun and opens up with both. John takes hits too quickly to dodge and goes down, unable to fight further. Psycho stands over John and a thought breaks through. There's unfinished business between them. It was John who killed Mad Dog, his partner and assistant of 10 years. Now the moment has arrived. He's going to avenge Mad Dog himself. Psycho takes aim at John and keeps firing until there is nothing left. Angie watches Psycho and says he feels like he's looking at a completely different person. He speculates quietly that Psycho's ability might be foresight, the ability to predict the future. Psycho turns slowly, gun trained on Angie, his entire presence colder than before. Angie says his full name, his tone still carrying that edge of amusement, and admits this is his first time seeing him in person. Psycho's reply carries a thread of dark humor. He can tell Angie dug up information on him, and says he probably knows more about Angie than Angie knows about him. He even throws out a taunt. asking Angie to guess whether this ends in failure again, whether he ends up on his knees begging that woman for mercy once more. The words detonate something in Angie. His energy erupts outward and his presence turns savage. An enormous black sphere materializes and hangs in the air above. Dark energy floods down and covers everything below it. Angie's voice turns brutal and dismissive. He treats Psycho like something beneath his notice. Psycho's expression cuts sharp. He snaps at Angie to shut his mouth, calls him nothing but a criminal, and pulls the trigger without hesitation. A torrent of bullets pours toward Angie. The bullets only manage to clip the fingers of the giant hand Angie had formed with his ability. Then a crowd of pale white skulls pours from the black sphere, charging straight at Psycho. Psycho fires again and blows apart the front row of skulls. Angie watches the precision of his anticipation and presses the question again, asking if Psycho really can predict the future. He also notes that Psycho's body seems to be struggling, and guesses he's paying a price for this power. Angie says it's a truly one-of-a-kind ability. No wonder the League has kept such a tight grip on Psycho. He adds, almost with regret, that if the League hadn't ground him down, Psycho's strength would be far beyond what it is today. Before the words finish, Angie drives his ability again. A massive shadow figure takes shape. He leaps onto its shoulder and stares down at Psycho from above, posture radiating absolute arrogance. The giant shadow figure moves forward in heavy, deliberate steps, the pressure it carries growing with each one. Psycho keeps dodging the figure's attacks, and tells Angie calmly that he guessed wrong. Psycho grabs the reaching hand of the shadow figure. He climbs fast along its thick fingers, and calls out the truth as he goes. He has no ability to see the future, only the past. Angie's habitual movements, the smallest shifts in expression. He doesn't miss a single detail. By analyzing everything that's already happened, he extrapolates what comes next. That is his one-of-a-kind ability. Of course, separate from any ability, his own strength is more than enough. Psycho launches himself at Angie on the shadow figure's shoulder. The attack is perfect. It lands exactly where he aimed. Blood spills from the corner of Angie's mouth. He wipes it off without urgency, and something odd crosses his expression. He asks Psycho whether things are really going the way he thinks. Psycho goes cold. Something is wrong. He feels it immediately. He sees that the energy channels running through Angie have shifted. The dark presence around him has intensified, more volatile than before, not less. Psycho throws himself sideways to avoid a direct hit, but a second, concealed wave of energy catches him from another angle. His body slams into a wall far behind him like a kite with its string cut, and he coughs up blood. He uses the wall to push himself back upright, frustration written across his face, but no retreat in his eyes. Angie looks down at him with unconcealed scorn, mocking him for forcing himself to keep going when his body clearly has nothing left. Psycho twists his mouth into a stubborn smile and fires back that Angie shouldn't act like the win is already his. He says abilities are like a mirror. They reflect the truest part of whoever uses them. The so-called dark spirits that accompany Angie don't actually exist anywhere outside of him. He gets back to his feet, his gaze steady as he speaks the truth out loud. They are nothing but the projection of a user's own darkness. If someone as consumed by darkness as Angie is left unchecked, more people will suffer for it. Psycho slowly draws his gun. There is only one thought left. Angie has to be stopped. Even if his body is already torn apart. Even if today is where he dies. He will not stop. Psycho grits his teeth and pours every last scrap of remaining energy into a single, final strike. Burn, last ember. A deafening boom. The energy he releases collides head-on with Angie's ability. But Angie's power is simply beyond containment. It swallows Psycho's attack whole. The dark energy presses forward, tearing Psycho's battle armor apart on contact. Pieces of armor scatter in every direction. Without the protection, Psycho sways, coughing up blood again. Against Angie's absolute power, Psycho has nothing left to fight back with. But he keeps struggling. His hands stay locked on his guns. His eyes stay hard. He absorbs every hit on sheer will and refuses to go down. Psycho clenches his jaw, eyes burning with something that won't break, telling himself that the branch director's death won't be for nothing. Even if he dies here today, he's dragging Angie down with his last breath. Psycho draws together every last trace of power he has left, and drives it through the giant shadow figure's body. At the same time, he spins the gun toward Angie, ready to pull the trigger and end it, but his fingers feel like they're filled with lead, completely immovable, refusing to close. His heart sinks. He knows it's over. Before he can summon another surge of strength, Angie's dark ability pierces through his body first. Psycho's voice fades to almost nothing. His chest is full of something boundless and unaccepted, the feeling of losing when he wasn't supposed to lose. This world was always unfair, always unreasonable, and he threw everything he had into fighting back. In the end, Angie was just stronger. Angie looks down at Psycho, who won't get back up, and speaks quietly with something like a verdict. He says that if the League hadn't broken Psycho down over the years, he might not have ended up in such a hollow place. But that's a hypothetical. The reality can't be changed now. He admits he respects Psycho's conviction, that even knowing everything was going to burn away to nothing, he still held on to that thing he called the light of justice, never wavering. A blue longsword condenses in Angie's palm, and his voice goes cold, saying this place is a hell built for the wicked, and there's no room for goodness in it. He reminds Psycho that in hell, pretending to be good never ends well. Angie raises the sword and swings it toward Psycho to finish what was started. On the other side of the battlefield, I'm moving through the wreckage, with demon blade's stolen sword in hand, weaving through the debris, looking for the others. I catch sight of Rachel sitting in the ruins and waving at me. She smiles and says she's glad I look like I'm still in one piece. I frown and ask what happened to all her wounds. Rachel waves it off without concern, saying it was just surface damage, nothing worth mentioning. I suddenly think back to the critical moment earlier, when she came through and saved my life, and something like gratitude stirs. I dig around in my pocket, I pull out a piece of chocolate, and hold it out, saying it'll help replenish energy. It's also what I use as a fuel source when I need to activate my abilities. Asking if she wants it. Mid-sentence, a thunderous crash rings out, and the ground shudders faintly beneath our feet. Rachel and I both look toward the source at the same time, both of us suddenly on edge. The next second, Rachel's eyes brighten and her voice goes eager, saying the fight over there is seriously impressive. She points toward where Psycho and Angie are locked together. She asks if I can catch Psycho when the moment comes. Just as she says it, Angie launches another assault. Their energies collide hard, throwing off blinding light and another bone-shaking boom. I take a bite of the chocolate in my hand, and say mildly that catching Psycho is the easy part. At that moment, Victor comes walking over, dragging the unconscious Sharpshooter behind him. His voice is a little urgent, saying he's finally tracked us down. He tells us to give him a hand if we can. I step forward and pick Sharpshooter up by the collar. I think about how close her arrow storm came to killing me earlier. Out of nowhere, irritation flares, so I fling her hard without much thought, partly to let it out. Victor rushes forward when he sees this, worried I'm about to do something irreversible on impulse. I ask where John is. Victor shakes his head, saying he hasn't seen him anywhere. He might already be gone. I let out a short laugh and say John clearly wasn't that strong. Nobody notices that behind a pile of rubble nearby, John is slowly gathering his scattered pieces back together, reassembling into a human form. I look back at Sharpshooter on the ground and ask Victor why he didn't just kill her. Victor answers without much thought that the captain said to keep her alive for now, she still has uses. Can't just take her out. He tells me not to worry too much about Sharpshooter. Then Victor shifts the subject, saying the fight over there looks like it's wrapping up. We should start getting ready to head back. Rachel agrees immediately, saying urgently she just wants to get back and take a bath and then sleep properly. Just as we're about to move, an ice-cold sensation suddenly crawls up my spine and spreads through my entire body. The pressure behind it is familiar, suffocating, and I know exactly who it belongs to. Victoria. This is bad. If she joins this fight, we don't stand a chance.